All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. That was not the slickest transition I ever did, so I'll apologize for that right now. I guess I'm a little bit out of practice doing flight streaming, as you guys are probably aware. It's been a little while since I have had a chance to do any flight streaming. It's been a busy summer. I've enjoyed it, and I've certainly gotten a lot out of it. I definitely will say I've spent a lot of time working this summer, but also a lot of time I enjoy myself. So streaming and organizing time to put streams together has not been in the cards this summer, but hopefully that's going to change come September. Kids go back to school, everything kind of gets more normal, more regular, more easily predictable schedules. So anyways, good morning, everybody. Good morning, JP Aviate. Welcome to the stream. As you can see, today we are here to celebrate something. Take a little sip from my coffee. We are here to celebrate Fenix releasing the A321 and A319 add-on package for their beautiful aircraft. And so as you can see, we've got the A321 lined up here today. This is what I was really waiting for. The A319, I could do without it. It's an interesting aircraft in its own right, but the 321 I think is really where it's at. I think it's the pinnacle of the entire 320 family. It really is. It's a long haul. It's a long hauler disguised as a narrow body. It's got a good range, but it's not even necessarily the long hauler, but it's got an incredible passenger capacity for a narrow body airliner. You're getting up almost into small wide body capacity at this time, and I can see why Airbus did what they did, and they went with the A321 LR and XLR expansions of the Neo line, because really there's nothing that's filled in the gap since the 5.7 stopped production. The 5.7 was a big airplane, but it didn't have a huge capacity. It had a long range, not a huge capacity, but it was great for those skinny long routes. And ever since the 757s went out of production, airlines have been waiting for somebody to replace it. The 321 XLR, LR, and especially the XLR will do that. They will allow a 4,000 or 5,000 mile range on a narrow body aircraft. So, there's people who argue that it may not be very comfortable to fly a narrow body for that long, for 5, 6, 7 hours, and there's probably some justification to that. But what the XLR will really do in the future is it will allow fleet flexibility, because the same airplane that you use to run shorter domestic hops can also then you can fill the tanks on it and go and do a 5-hour leg. So flexibility is going to be huge. I can't imagine flying on a narrow body for 7 hours. The seats are almost the same, though. I think the biggest issue is going to be the cruise, because there's not a dedicated rest facility. So if there's an augment and there's a rest period, because your crews are just going to be napping in the first class cabin and business class cabin. So I think that will probably be one of the more awkward things about it. But anyways, regardless, we're here to celebrate this fact that this has finally been released, because I've been waiting for this for a long time. Like I said, I've never had that problem, house being small. Yeah, well, and me too. Like, I'm not a big person, so I don't mind an economy class seat for an extended period of time. I've done 5-hour deadheads in economy class, and yes, business class is more comfortable, but I could totally survive an economy class seat for 5 hours, 6 or 7. Yeah, okay, it's probably about pushing my limit, but it's definitely doable. So, anyways, I realize there's a lot of background noise out here, so for those of you that can't tell, just a quick look around here. We are currently obviously flying Lufthansa, so we are starting out in the hub of Lufthansa. And if we just kind of do this here, we can just have a little look around here, and we can see that we are in fact at Frankfurt, and we are going to do something different today. So I'm going to fly through Europe online with ATC. We got quite a few aircraft on the ground here in Frankfurt. It is always busy in Frankfurt. It's the #1 airport on VATSIM, day in and day out, it seems. But hand in hand with this, we're going to go down and we're going to do something a little bit different. So somewhere I've never been before. We're going to go down to Palermo in Italy. It's about a 2-hour flight, so I think it's a great chance to kind of stretch the A321's legs. The other, of course, benefit of it is that these are both bespoke airports included with the default package. I don't really have too many European airports, payware airports, and I can't stand default scenery. I've said it before and I said it again. I really can't deal with default scenery. So I decided to try somewhere nice, and Palermo, I actually had a quick look at it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful location. So it's going to be really nice flying this airplane down there. But we'll also have some ATC. We do have some ATC here in Frankfurt this morning, so or this afternoon if you're in Europe. So yeah, we're going to get this show underway and see what we can do here. I'm just trying to figure out, first of all, if I can get a Let's see here if I can get a PDC data link, and it does say I can. So we're going to try to do that. So hopefully everything's worked out. So we'll hop in the flight deck, and one thing I noticed when I sat down here is that, first of all, my first officer is missing. And I downloaded an update this morning because I saw there was an update for FS2 crew, and it seems to have removed the first officer, so I'm going to have to figure that out. I'm not sure if he's going to work or not. He, she, they are going to work or not. But the one thing that I will say, and I realize I don't have my webcam up here. I'm doing all this gesturing, and I don't even have a webcam. Good morning, everybody. The one thing I did realize that is working this morning, and I'm very happy about it now, is my mini FCU. So when Fenix released the 319, 321, the mini FCU did not work immediately with those. I kind of thought it would, because you'd think they're built on a very common base and a lot of the same code, but it didn't. It didn't initially work on. I think it worked on the 319, but not the 321. They just released an update this morning, or maybe it was last night. Anyways, when I woke up this morning, I looked and it was there, and it appears to work. I'm just going to go and play with some buttons here on my FCU, and you can see that we are, in fact, it does in fact work, which is just wonderful. So. Yeah, that is something that I've been happy to see. All right, I'll be right back. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that, everyone. Had to change batteries in a remote control. Non-stop technical support, that's what I am. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so I'm really excited that the mini FCU works again. It only took 2 days for them to update the software, which I gotta say is pretty good. That Fenix kind of came out of nowhere. It really did. They just like, oh, we're gonna drop it this week. Next day, oh, we dropped it. I like that because it's a happy surprise, but sometimes you kind of wish you knew it was coming. Anywho, let's get the show on the road because we do have about a 2-hour flight ahead of us, so we do want to make sure that we do get everything underway here. Now that we're back in the flight deck, I can probably turn up the audio volume again. I just turn it down when we're outside because the sound of the jets in this simulator sometimes can be, when you're outside, can be deafening, which it is realistic, like they are honestly deafening. But I don't want to deafen all the people who are watching the stream. So let's see here. We've got parking brake, do a quick fluid level check, so oxygen looks good. We've got engine oil, we've got hydraulics. We're going to say it's not a first flight of the day. We're just going to keep this thing going because I want to get this going. I really want to just show off this airplane, talk about it. Yeah, just drop it. That's very counter PMDG. It is. It very much is. And I think it's, in a way, it's a good thing. PMDG suffers from their own success. I have to think that Fenix's website didn't crash the way PMDG's did because nobody knew the exact time it was going to release. Nobody even knew the exact date. So it was kind of a surprise. And that's a good thing. All right, so we've got this going here. Let's hop into the FMS here and just start the alignment process. So I'm just going to go and look at my, really, Navigraph? Now you log me out. I'm just starting to stream, and this is when you say, oh, no, you got to log in again. Fortunately, that was not too painful, but all right. Let's go. Well, now what are we doing here? We're doing data, aircraft status, so we're going to swap the database. Doesn't do anything because there's only one database online. I wish they would kind of change that so it actually looked realistic. I always do a performance factor +1 because we always have a performance factor. In reality, like most of the aircraft I fly, the performance factor is 9 to 13%. There's a few that are like 7%, but like most of them are not. But I put one in there anyways because it keeps me in the habit of doing it. And then initialization. So again, we are going EDDF Frankfurt to Palermo, Italy, LICJ. And the flight number I have set up for us today is Lufthansa 1914. Lufthansa 1914 IRS initialization. So you can either look at the chart or you can look in your flight log, and it's right here in the flight log. It's the very first thing, 50.0 north, 50.02.0 north by 834.2 east. 834.2 east. That is all correct. So I can go ahead and align on that reference point, and it's doing it. All right, I believe I loaded the flight plan already. I did bring the jetway over, so let's just do a few things here. I'm just kind of, this is a little bit of almost practice for pilot's life again, because come September, I do plan to start the season again. The other thing I'm now waiting for, I was waiting for this 321. I was kind of hoping the 321 drop during the summer so that I could take advantage of it with the new season. The other thing that I am waiting for is just a GSX livery. So I only saw one on flightsim.to. I didn't see any in the official liveries for the A321, so I would like to see those. There's our, it should say, it says the departure time. That was the original departure time. I modified it to 14:15, and it's not showing up there properly for some reason. But anywho, it's not a problem. We are going to deal with this. All right, so what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to wait for the IRSs to align before we do any ACARS operations. What we can do, though, is we can grab an ATIS because it's busy here. It's Europe, so it's always busy. Not arrival ATIS, departure ATIS. So let's request the ATIS. Frankfurt Information Delta, 1320, 25 center, and 18 TRL 60. Wind 260 degrees at 11 knots, variable between 230 and 290. Cav OK, temperature 22.9. QNH 1018. Trend nothing significant. Information Delta. All right, so 1018. So let's get this in there. 1018. 1018. Very good. All right. We've done that. I do that by habit because I'm so used to it. So remind me that we're in Europe and I have to fly millibars. I'm going to just set up some other stuff here while we're waiting. There's a few switches that I can move. I'll recheck them when we actually do our overhead flow. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but let's try this. Let's start setting up. Let's start setting up. I feel like something is botched on this installation. Yeah, I might be on my own. All right, well, if we have to, we have to. Let's start setting up. Let's start setting up. What's funny is that it recognizes the speech, but it's not triggering anything. I think something went amiss in the installation process because my first officer is missing. So, too bad. We'll live. We'll open the door so we can see the passengers board, but we'll live with it. 4 minutes until our alignment. It's a little frustrating sometimes. I'm going to try to avoid using the tablet today. The tablet does work nicely with the A321, but I'm going to try and avoid using it today. But yeah, inside, like this is the thing about the 320 family, is you don't even know what bloody airplane you're in until you kind of look behind you and see how many rows of seats there are. And it's like, oh my God, this bus goes back there forever. There's the catering guy. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, this is, like, I call it the clown car. Because especially when you're watching people get off this thing, you're like, how are there still people getting off? Like 195 passengers later, there's still somebody getting off the airplane. It's like, It's a big airplane, but that's what makes it. That's what makes it a good airplane, though. I like it because it's heavy, and because it's heavy, it tends to be very stable as a platform. You contrast it to the 319, which just it feels like a 172. I swear sometimes, just getting tossed around in the winds and gusts and everything. With the A321, it's so heavy, it's so solid. Winds don't necessarily move it very well. She climbs like a brick. She climbs like a lead brick, but she definitely has the hauling capacity. Definitely an airplane designed by Europeans with the idea of efficiency in mind, not the American way of like just throw more power at the problem until we get up to the altitude. Very much efficiency, and you can see this is it's a symptom a little bit of what happens when you do stretch an airplane a little bit to its limits, but it's nothing unsafe about it. It has plenty of takeoff performance. It can get off the ground without any kind of issues. It's just a question of it starts to get anemic in the higher altitudes. You very rarely will take a 321 up to 34, 35, 36. You might take it up there, but usually it won't be initially. You usually start out at 31, 32, 33, and then you'll usually go up from there. Again, it depends. I mean, the fuel load can be 20 tons, so that can make a big difference from full to empty. I don't even know what we're taking today. It should be refueling. It is refueling. Let's see here. What are we taking today for fuel? There we go. My mini cockpit is working. Just checking my SimBrief flight plan. Just trying to do stuff while I'm waiting here. And let's see here. The fuel summary here, 10,700 kilos. So yeah. The other thing we can do as well, while we're just waiting, is we can get ready to get a clearance when we do get our ATC completely initialized. ATC request, I believe it's in there. Pre-departure clearance, there it is. And I believe it is under EDDF. It should be anyways. So station EDDF. All right, so EDDF/LICJ and Lufthansa 1914. ATIS, we had Delta, I believe, and we're at gate Alpha 14. Aircraft type A321. Enter optional free text. I don't have any optional free text to enter. I can send that off. I actually shouldn't have sent that off until we had initialized the ACARS system. That was my bad. I kind of got it carried away with what I was doing there. We got 1 minute till the IRS is aligned, and then we can do this thing. All right, and there they go. They're all coming into alignment now. They're less than 60 seconds to go when it changes to just IR and align. We'll see if we get a response back. All right, and the IR in align is gone. So we can now do the rest of the process here, which is, let's go back to the ATC request menu, AOC menu. First thing we should have done is initialize the flight so that the whole ACARS system knows who we are. That's normally what you do first. Then you send requests in and out through the ACARS system. Otherwise, the ACARS system doesn't know who you are. Lufthansa 1914, Frankfurt, LICJ, LICPC, alternate 126. And was that the sound of our PDC coming back? Looks like it was. Clearance request received. Stand by. Well, that's okay. That's good. It was received. That's the important thing. And let's go into receive messages again. And, oh, it even works on the DCDU. Now, to be honest, I've never really used the DCDU too much, so close that. All right. Let's see here. PDC Delta Lufthansa 1914 clear to LICJ off 1 Bravo via Anaki off of 18. Sorry. Anaki 12 Lima. Climb 4,000. Squawk 1,000. ATIS Delta report ready on 2135. Wilco. Alright, so we got to squawk 1,000, so let's just make sure that that's what we got in there before we get away from it. 1,000. And I don't know how to make that otherwise sound go away if it's going to keep doing its thing here. so we do have our PDC. It is there. 1-8 via the Aneki to Lima, so that's perfect. We can set that up. We've got the initialization. The only other thing we do need in here as well is we do need a secondary flight plan. So let's go ahead and request that. And I'll be honest, this is the first time I've successfully done a PDC in the Fenix. I've tried it. I tried it once or twice before, but I don't know if there was a Hoppy issue or if it just wasn't set up properly. But it's good to see it work. It was nice to see it work in the 777. Nice to see it work in this thing. It's a lot less hassle than trying to get through on the ground, on the clearance and ground frequency too. All right, so secondary flight plan is uplinked. Let's have a look here. All right, EDF, Aneki, Echo Badly, Yankee 163. That all goes down to LICJ. So we're going to recheck it here when we actually go through this. How do I stop that thing from going off? I assume that has to do with the ACARS. How do I stop that noise from going off? Because honestly, like I said, this is the first time I've ever successfully used it. Alright, so I'm going to just accept that load sheet. It's going to be 70 tons. We are going to come back to this in a minute. Set at W23.7. Alright. How do I make you stop doing that? Clearance confirmed. Is that going to make it stop now? Alright, anyways, I'm going to start with my overhead flow while I've hopefully that fixed the problem. Alright, so we're going to start with a quick overhead flow here. Let's just put these to present position. Sorry guys. Track IR, come on, you can do better than this. Nope, now it's even worse. Some days. Alright, let's try that. That seems a little better. Alright. No lights, no lights, no lights. You're basically looking to see everything is no lights. Test the CVR. Alright, audio switching is normal. We'll say we've done the first flight of the day checks because I just want to get this going here. We've seen this before. I've flown the Fenix many times. Fueling appears to be done. We've got 10.7. That does appear to be done, so we'll go ahead. This is a 321, so everything goes on because the center is no longer pumps. The center is now transfer valves. So they changed the formatting of the fuel tanks in the 321 from the 320. And we'll talk about that hopefully when we get going here. Those are balanced nicely. Everything's on and open, so that's good. Let's see here. Don't need to check the batteries because it's not the first flight of the day. Generator 1, we got external power on. We've got generator false. It's okay at this time of day. We should always have the cabin temperature control set about there. Everyone always complains it's too hot in these cabins. And it's probably getting warm in here already as we start to board 170 people. Okay, fueling's done. Let's just, before we decide to start the APU, let's have a look at this. It's getting, it's not too bad. The cockpit's a little bit warm, but the cabin's fine. So, you know what? I'll put up with it. I don't mind. I like it warm anyways. I like summer. Alright. 1018, we got that. That's set to 100. That should be set like that. That's better. No flags, no flags. 1018's good. We centered that. Seatbelts and no smoke alarm, parking brake, and TCAS standby are all okay messages. 1400. We're supposed to be out of here 1415. This might be a bit of a strain, but we'll try. We're going to try. I spent too much time yakking already, and I do tend to do that. The one thing I should probably actually do is recall from my message here. 21855. 121.855. So I'm not going to put that in the primary because it's going to get too distracting, but I'll make sure it's up there in the standby, so we're ready to flip it and use it. Let's see here. That should be in cal, off, auto, stowed. Let's see here. Pressure. So pressure, so 50 feet for Palermo. Palermo sounds good. Cat 2 in op is fine. Just check my thrust levers are both working here. I've got engine's good. So I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but I did get the Thrustmaster quadrant for the Airbus. So I have control of these switches from my quadrant, which is over here down in that corner under, just underneath the edge of my desk, which is kind of in a normal position where you would want it to be. Like it's, when you're sitting in this seat, it's actually a bit of a strain. It's not a strain, but it is a bit of a stretch to reach the thrust levers. They are pretty far over there, which is fine. But so actually having it underneath my desk is kind of almost the right arm position anyways to kind of match that. Okay, just a quick flight has been cross-checked. So I got one FT2, yeah. QNH 1018 showing 340 feet, QNH 1018 showing 340, and QNH 1018 showing 340. Heading is 115, 115, 115, 115, 115. Yeah, perfect. All right. Into the box to set this whole thing up here. So departing Frankfurt, we're supposed to depart runway 18, and it's the Aneki 2 Lima or 1 Lima, maybe. Aneki 2 Lima, it is 2 Lima. Yeah, Aneki 2 Lima, and no transition. We insert that, and for the arrival into Palermo, I'm just going to go with my Simbury flight plan for now, and it suggests, 25 via the Giano 5 Lima Giano. So arrival 25 left. 25 left or 25? 25, sorry. So there's Loke and VOR, and maybe we can do an RNAV. Let's do an RNAV Yankee 25. Giano 2. What did I say? Giano 5 Lima. Giano 5 Lima. No transitions available, so we'll insert that. We'll check that as we get going to make sure it's all correct, and then let's just check it against our flight plan. So I got it up here on the other screen, unfortunately, because I have to keep clicking the button. Actually, no, I don't have to do that because I could use my tablet for this to click the button, and you can watch and make sure the whole flight plan makes sense here against what we got in the box. So out of Frankfurt, we're looking at the Aneki 2 Lima. Then it's Yankee 163 to Nator. There it is. Then direct Tango Romeo Alpha, direct Ripus, direct Gersa, direct Sosan, direct Odina, direct Calmo, direct Echo Lima Bravo, direct Vila, direct Pokav. From Pokav, direct Ronab for the Lima 12 to Giano, and then that's the arrival there and into the approach for Palermo. So that's all good. That's everything's in there as it should be. So the other way we do it is we do a quick store here. Let's see here, DLH1914. This works about 50% of the time. There, that worked. Makes that easier to actually read sometimes. Aneki Y163, Nator, TRA, Ripus, Gersa, Sosan, Odina, Calma, that all looks good. You can go to the next page to see the rest of it. Ronab, and then it doesn't show you the arrivals and departures, which it should in the real airplane. It does, but that's fine. That's good enough. So we definitely know what it's doing there. The total distance today was 793 miles, and we are looking at a total ground distance of 797. So that's very reasonable. All right, RadNav page, auto-tune is good for now. Secondary, recopy the active, and what are they arriving on? Let's see here. ATIS had it as arrival, so departures 25 center, so I'm going to say arrival 25 left. So what I'm going to do is after a couple of fixes here, I'm just going to say new destination, EDDF, and you program an immediate return. If the engine catches fire or something really bad happens in departure, you don't have to think twice. You can activate the secondary, and you've immediately got an approach. So you can get back and land extremely quickly this way. So just return. So EDDF after Neclo, it's then the ILS 25 left. It'll auto-tune everything for you. But the primary flight plan still shows Frankfurt 18 to Palermo 25. So that's good. I'm just going to clear that message. Yes, secondary, we got that a long time ago. All right, so the init Bravo page now. Oh, we never did the init Alpha page properly here. So we do have to do DLH 1914. We are costing at 100 today. And the flight level is 330 initially. So we'll go 330. And like I said, you don't get very high in the bus. All right. Now we can do the Bravo page. I got myself a little out of order there. Alternate. Let's see here. Alternate is about 1.7. Final fuel is going to be 1.3. And then the ZFW. So we can go to the other MCDU and just check it out here on our load sheet that we did get. We actually got a final load sheet here by the looks of it. We did. So 70.8 by 23.7. 70.8 by 23.7 with a block fuel of 10.7. It should be up on there. It is 10.7. By the time we get this thing started here, it's going to be 10.7. So we'll put that in. And that gives us a takeoff weight of 81.3. Trip wind here. Average wind plus 16. So we'll just do a quick check and make sure this adds up to my fuel burn here. So I'm looking for 1 hour 46, 5.8. 1 hour 52, 5.4. It's close. It's in the right ballpark anyways. 2.3 extra, so I should have, let's see here. Finres and alternate is 3. And then plus I've got 8 and 7. That adds up to another 15. So sorry, I'm not looking for Finres. I'm looking for this. Look for extra. Sorry. So 1,500 plus my contingency 1,800, and then there's a difference in fuel burn here of about 400 kilos. So that makes sense. So that all makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and zero that back out again, and now we'll get the wins. While we're waiting for that. In the real world, it seldom comes back that fast. It usually takes about 3 or 4 minutes. You usually move on and come back to it. But it is blue, 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 which means it is all active for the cruise, climb, and descent. And then we got to go to the perf page. So I believe that, yes, there we are. Let's get some takeoff numbers here. I can get them out of SimBrief, but this will probably be faster. I don't usually do this, but let's see here. Runway 18 for departure. Looks dry out there. Flap configuration optimal. No need to force toga. Anti-ice off. 2 packs on for departure if it'll let us. Actually, how warm is it out there? Because we do have a warning. It is temperature 22. Okay, so we're going to go packs off. So there's a warning in the 321 to avoid packs on departures. At temperatures exceeding 15 degrees. Sync load sheet final. So that just loads it directly in there. And 81.325.2, sync live weather if it's not already done, and calculate. So we got flaps 2, 0.9, 54 degrees, 167, 171, 171. Those are pretty high speeds. That's another thing you notice about the... Alright, so it's again, no shift, flaps 2, 54, 67, 71, 71. Flaps, no shift, flaps 2, 54, 67, 71, 71, 1820 across the bottom, 5,000 transition altitude, and that all looks good. And we even got the up 0.9 already in there. Yeah, when you're doing 321 departures in the temperatures over 15 degrees, you should always do packs off to minimize the temperature. It's very easy to get an over temp on these engines. They have to put out a lot of power to get this big beast moving. Somebody answer the phone. Thank you. I didn't even see your comment there for a long time. All right, so that performance page is good. Prog page, I know, we'll get going eventually here. 33, 33, 35. Let's see here. I'm just going to put EDDF for a reference point here. We are 0.9 miles away from the center of the airport. That makes sense. GPS primary nav accuracy is high. And the IRSs are all naving at 0.9. We did get the PDC already. We put it in. We've checked it all already, so that's good. So, quick little... Fort Lauderdale check. We need fuel. Fuel is boarded. 10.7 is on board. We're good. Load is load final numbers are already inputted into the system, so that's good. And logbook is on board. Ramp check, service check, all that stuff is done. All right, let's just double check this against our flight plan here. And one thing I don't do very often is, come on, do it. Use these charts either. I'm not sure if this is going to really work. You know what? I'm not going to do this because this is just too small, I think, for you guys to see. So, yeah, we'll go back to what we'll do is we'll do it this way. It's a little slower and crunchier, but I think just for the sake of the stream, it's a little easier to kind of see what's going on. So we can go ahead and, while that's loading, put this in plan mode. It's thinking. Wow, it's really thinking. Holy moly. It's like I never do this. All right, so, wow, the last time I did this was the last time I streamed. That's the only time I use this overlay because it's nice because it's integrated into the sim. You guys can see it. EDDF-LICJ, that's us. So let's load that up. And let's check this departure here. Calling for a radio check, read you 5. All right. Aneki to Lima. All right, so contact Langen radar when advised by tower radar required. SIDs are also noise abate procedure. Strict adherence within the limits of aircraft performance is mandatory. Runway 18 warning. Close in obstacles. Warning. Wind shears and increased turbulence must be expected with strong winds. For operational runway use concept, refer to 10-1 Papa page. Speed max 250 below flight level 100 or as by ATC, not applicable within Charlie airspace. Aneki to Lima, initial climb clearance 4,000. So I'm going to just set that right now. We'll look up again and check that in a minute. And the Aneki to Lima, 800 feet, we go to DF-101, which if you look down here, 800 feet, DF-101, I know it's a little bit hard to see, and then Aneki, so it's pretty straightforward here. Aneki to Lima, 800 feet, DF-101, max 220 knots there. Let's just see, and I see it at the bottom there, it does say max 220 knots, and then Aneki, so pretty straightforward departure there. I'm not too familiar with Frankfurt, so if there's any other special procedures that I'm not aware of, I guess we're going to find out the hard way. Just a quick look at the airport diagram so we have some sense of what we're doing here. We're parked at Alpha 14. We have to go out November 8, November 7 here, and then probably, I guess, November or Lima to 18, something like that. So it should be a fairly straightforward taxi instruction as well, I think. Engine out procedure, we will simply fly straight ahead, and yeah, noise abatement is built into the SID. The performance for the takeoff today, it is a left seat departure off runway 18, dry runway in Frankfurt. No takeoff shift, flaps 2, it's a little unusual, so flaps 2, flex of 54, V1 167, VR 171, V2 171, transition 18, or sorry, transition 5,000. Let's just double check that on my SID chart here that does match. Transition altitude 5,000. Perfect. RNF 1 GB. I didn't read those other notes at the top, so that's good. 1820, and for the thrust reduction acceleration, 1320 for the engine out, 232 the green dot speed. We'll pre-select that for the climb, so it does jump up to that. Once we get to selected speed, we will have to maintain 220 though until DF-101. So we may not be able to clean up until we get to till past DF-101. It's going to be a managed departure. We've got climb blue, nav blue. We'll get the autopilot on probably within the first 1,000 feet just because it's going to be busy with the ATC and everything else. And I think that's about it. Rad nav page is auto-tuned. And yeah, biggest threat I see is just my unfamiliarity. I'm going to take my time. I don't have an FO, so I'll do my best. I probably won't answer too many chats just while we're taxiing out, just to keep the sterile flight deck and keep the distractions to a minimum. No single engine taxi. This airplane's just too heavy to do it most of the time, unless it's pretty much empty. OEBs 6 and 46, and we'll say that the briefings are complete, and I think we're just about ready to go. So one thing I should have done when I started the briefing, and I'm trying to get more in this habit, is start the AP when I start the briefing, because usually there's a pause here anyways. We're usually done before the passengers are done loading, but GSX, that's often not the case. So flight attendant comes in and says, yeah, we're done boarding, you're good to close. All right, we can close up. We just got to get the APU up and running, and we are ready to get going here. All right, so let me get the frequency up here, 21.855. It's the ground frequency, he's still there. And let me just check, you guys probably can't hear that, right? No. So I've got it set to the wrong speaker. This is a perfect opportunity to just change it up real quick. Sorry about that. I really am not ready for this stream here. I'm living in summertime right now. All right, now there's no calls on the frequency.
Kuwait 127, we're ready for push start.
That sounds like you guys are good.
Lufthansa 4 Hotel Whiskey, contact departure 120.805, tschüss.
120.805 for Lufthansa 4 Hotel Whiskey, ciao.
120.805, okay, perfect.
Lufthansa 25 Yankee,
Departure frequency ready, there's the APU, it's available.
I have information echo request clearance to the wonderful destination Mallorca.
Alright.
Kuwait 172.
And we're all done boarding, we got the fuel we need, we got the fuel ticket, we put the beacon on, which triggers the tug.
Facing west, Kuwait 127.
Lufthansa 25 Yankee, Frankfurt Apron, hello, information echo current, clear to Palma de Mallorca, ANECI to Lima departure, flight planned route, climb.
Alright, I think we're ready.
Seats, squawk 2136.
Can you say the departure again?
I'm going to get my Fenix A321 crew checklist here. Gear pins and covers removed. Fuel quantity 10.7 tons is checked. Seatbelts are on. ADRs are on. And the barrel ref 1018 is set. A 4-star checklist. Park and brake is set right now. Takeoff speeds and thrusts. We do have, again, V1167, VR171, V2171, and flex of 54. Windows closed, and beacon is on.
Departure
4-star
120.805, takeoff, ciao.
Frankfurt, Guten Morgen, Lufthansa 1914, gate Alpha 14, ready.
Lufthansa 1914, start and pushback approved.
Pushback startup approved, thank you, Lufthansa 1914. Alright, transponder's now on in case you couldn't see it, because it's part of our normal checklist. We are a little bit behind schedule, but only 3 minutes. We're actually doing really good here. Why did this not take my... I just noticed the overlay doesn't have the data. I didn't save for some reason, so let's just do it again.
Kuwait 133, stand by for pushback due to traffic behind of you.
Release parking brakes, please.
Alright, brakes are released.
Commencing push.
Ready for pushback, delaying to start until advised.
Clear. Start at will.
Good day, ground Lufthansa 43 Charlie, Alpha to Hanover, information echo and stand Victor 110.
Alright, now the overlay should be working there. Yeah, looks like it's working.
X-Ray Charlie, Frankfurt Apron, hello, information echo current, clear to Hanover.
And we are off the gate, so
flight planned route, climb by
start
SAD,
engines
level
2
7,
and 1. Alright, starting engines 2 and 1.
Hanover via Maron 7 departure and climb via set, finish climb flight level 70, flight 1000
Lufthansa 4 X-Ray Charlie, read back correct.
Lufthansa 1 Whiskey Alpha
I just wonder how this push is looking outside here. So it is turning.
Lufthansa 1 Whiskey Alpha, start and pushback approved, facing west.
Push start approved, facing west, Lufthansa 1 Whiskey Alpha.
So we get this nice little...
Oh,
that's looking really good.
Lima departure is not available for me.
Well done, well done. I pre-selected that last night. That's one thing I did do to prepare for the stream was I kind of pre-selected this pushback position to make sure it looked good.
ANECI 2 Delta, ANECI 4 Echo.
Alright.
Negative, Lufthansa 2 Yankee, normally ANECI, the ANECI Lima departure should be available for runway 18.
Lufthansa 2 Yankee, wait a minute.
These IAE engines are a lot slower to start than CFMs. The CFMs are some of the fastest turbine engines I've ever seen to start.
Dann hast du aber einen sehr alten IRAC, dann nimm die 9er Lima.
Ich habe wahrscheinlich bis
IAEs are a lot slower to get going here.
Sorry.
Ja, der ist schon ein bisschen älter.
Ja.
Alright, so that looks good. We've got a good stable start on number 1.
Kuwait 127, ready
Or
for
start number 2, starting number 1.
Kuwait 127, taxi to runway 25 center via Lima, hold short of Lima 1.
Doing this properly is a lot of work, but it's so satisfying to get it done too.
Lima 1, Kuwait 127.
Saudi 133, do you have the traffic behind of you inside?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? Sorry, ICC?
4%.
Saudi 133, do you have the traffic point 777 behind of you inside?
There's 25, there goes the ignition, there goes the fuel flow.
Saudi 133,
See the oil pressure's rising, now you see the EGP start to rise.
Facing west.
After taxing traffic, facing west, Saudi 133, thank you.
All right, that looks good. EGT starting at normal rate, vibrations are normal, oil pressure's up.
Able Lima.
Lufthansa 1 Charlie Alpha, taxi to holding point runway 18 via Lima.
Taxi holding point runway 18 via Lima, Lufthansa 1 Charlie Alpha.
I heard the power switch there. What's funny is you don't see the flash though. Because in the real airplane you generally see a flash. There is a moment, a split second where there's no power to most of the systems and it comes back on, but you usually will see all the screens flash off and flash back on as each power transfer happens. You'll see these three screens when engine 2 comes online, when generator 2 comes online, you'll see these three screens when generator 1 comes online. So it's weird that you don't see that in this sim. The sim is almost too perfect sometimes. Alright, but that is 2 good starts. Alright, and after start checklist. Alright, so we're going to leave the APU on for the PAX for the departure, because we did a PAX off departure. And it's going to be flaps 2. Alright, and let's do the quick after start checklist here. Anti-ice is off. ECAM status is checked. Just pack 2 off right now. Pitch trim. And you'll also notice about the 321, the pitch trims are a lot more extreme than the 320 most of the time is. Not extreme, but definitely more to each side. And rudder neutral. Alright, that's weird stuff to do after start, but anyways. Alright.
Lufthansa 4 X-ray Charlie, stand by for pushback. Traffic next to you is already pushing back, but no problem. Pushback approved, straight back facing north.
Pushback approved and facing north, straight north.
Yeah, confirmed, straight back facing north. Lufthansa 1 Charlie Alpha, contact departure 120.805, tschüss.
120.805, Lufthansa 1 Charlie Alpha, danke, tschüss.
Lufthansa 1 Whiskey Alpha, test taxi.
Lufthansa 1 Whiskey Alpha, taxi to holding point runway 18 via November 7 and November.
Holding point runway November 7, November, Lufthansa 1 Whiskey Alpha.
Lufthansa 1914, ready taxi.
Lufthansa 1914, taxi to holding point runway 18 via November 8, November 7 and November.
Taxi holding point 18 via November 8, November 7, November, Lufthansa 1914. November 8, November 7, November 8, November 7, November. So stick to the right and then a left turn. Alright. Brakes.
Hello, Lufthansa. Frankfurt come, the Sadia 162 heavy with information echo, requesting for clearance to Manchester.
And it does take some power to get this airplane moving. You cannot get this airplane moving without power. It's a heavy beast. You will always need power to get this thing moving pretty much, unless it's very lightly loaded. But at a normal passenger load, this thing is a heavy beast. She's a machine. We are sitting at, what, 81.5 tons here. We're also 3 tons over the max landing weight. And look at the speeds, too. Like, the difference here now when you're into the 321 versus the 320.
2026.
You know, your takeoff speeds, you've got a V1 of 167, rotation speed of 171 knots. And even flaps 2, still rotating at 171 knots. And a clean speed, a green dot speed of 232 knots. So that's less than a 20 knot margin between your max speed below 10,000 of 250 and there. And this is not even fully loaded. This is 81 tons. You can go up to 93 tons in the 321. So you can put another 12 tons in there. You end up with green dot speeds in the realm of 247, 248. You sometimes have a 2 to 3 knot margin below 10,000 feet between your max speed and your minimum speed. This thing flies like a heavy. You fly it like a heavy. You're sitting there on the knife edge a lot of the time between the maximum and the minimum. And I kind of like that, though. I really do. Is that my intercom? There it is. Flight deck drop, Cat speaking.
Alright,
that's that cabin secure.
Call. Lufthansa 5 Echo Mike, read back correct. Lufthansa 1 Whiskey Alpha, contact departure 120.805.
Alright, it's a lot of work to kind of focus on everything that's going on here. And listening when it's this busy too. It's a very busy frequency. Alright, so this is November 8. Then we're going to make the left turn here. It's going to become November 7. And you notice the inertia of this thing. It definitely feels heavy. You notice the inertia. It takes quite a bit more braking effort to slow it down. The length of it too. You notice that it takes some effort to kind of drag it around the turns. And it definitely cuts the corner on the inside of the turns. You have to go deeper into the turn. You have to think like you're flying a heavy airplane. It's a long airplane. It's not a short airplane. It's 146 feet from nose to tail. It's not a short airplane. You have to think like you're operating like a heavy airplane. It's not as bad. It's definitely not as bad as, say, the 777 or something like that, where you have like a ridiculous, like, you've got to go past the center line for these turns. But you can't cut the corner at all. Because if you cut the corner, that inside main gear, there's a good chance it's going to go off the side of the taxiway. So you really have to kind of make sure you're pegging the nose wheel on the center line. So this should be November right here.
Lufthansa 7X Kilo, Frankfurt Apron.
Alright, so clear on the left. We're going to make a right turn here, going down to runway 18. I forgot how much fun it is to fly in Frankfurt, though, because it's such a busy airport. It's almost like a real life level of workload here. Alright, once we get straightened out here, we'll have a little while here. Do the flight control checks. Alright, flight control check. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, and full left, full right, neutral. Alright, let's go ahead with the taxi checklist. So flight controls are checked. Flaps config 2. Radar wind shear.
X-ray Charlie, taxi to runway 25 center via Lima, hold short of Lima 1, and for departure monitor Unicom, wanted to decimal.
Engine mode selector, normal. And takeoff, no blue. Takeoff mode, no blue. Alright, just the taxi check is complete. The lineup check is to go.
For departure, Unicom, want to decelerate. Goodbye.
And was that for us? That might have been for us.
Saudi 133, for departure. The taxi via Lima, follow the traffic in front of you, and for departure monitor Unicom,
it's a little bit better here now today, but for some reason yesterday I was feeling like it was very sluggish on the taxi. And this is an airplane, again, it's 81 tons now. It's got a lot of inertia to it. Once you get going, you keep going. This actually feels better. I was flying the CFM engines yesterday, and it took an incredible amount of power to keep it going. This one, it feels kind of like it's about right. I got the thrust levers right at idle. It's at 20 knots. It's staying at 20 knots. It keeps going. It doesn't slow down. Doesn't speed up either, but it doesn't slow down. The CFMs yesterday, it was, it's amazing how much...
Lufthansa 7X Kilo, Frankfurt Apron, hello, taxi Victor 175 via November.
It's amazing how much thrust I needed to get going and stay going. If I had it idle, the 321 would just decelerate to nothing, which is not really correct. It does keep going once it gets going. It takes a lot of thrust to get it going. It does. But once it starts going, the inertia just carries it. It doesn't slow down very much on its own. Alright, straight ahead on November.
Lufthansa 1914 for departure, monitor Unicom 122.8, cheers.
Alright, thank you very much for the service, 122.8, Lufthansa 1914. I guess we lost the departure controller. So we do have...
Saudi 133, Frankfurt Apron.
It was nice to see the pre-departure data link. That was nice.
X-ray, Frankfurt Apron, hello, information Foxtrot current, cleared Sylt.
Alright, I'm going to kill this frequency because, boy, that's annoying to listen to. Okay, let's just pull this up here and see how we're doing. We are decelerating a little bit now, but like I'd say that's a reasonable amount of deceleration. In the last 3 or 4 minutes, we've lost 4 knots. Like, without like an extra 10% thrust, wasn't it like 30%? I couldn't even keep a speed in the 321 with the CFM. So I don't think it's the engines, because the engines seem to, the performance once you get airborne seems about right. I think it's the taxi friction. I think it's the way the wheels interact with the ground. Yeah, we're coming up to 1.8 here shortly. I think that's that's what was causing the issue, because but then this seems to work quite well. I don't know what they did to it. We got up to 28 knots here on the taxi. I did have thrust going on there. You heard the click, that was me bringing it back to idle again. Alright, so this should be runway 18. Alright, there shouldn't be anyone arriving on it, but let's just look anyways. And I don't do a lineup check, so what's the lineup check for Phoenix here? Normally we don't do one. Takeoff runway confirmed, TCAS, TARA, and PAX. So we can definitely put the PAX on the APU bleed now. We can put PAC to, oops, pressed it twice, on. And we'll just stand by a second here. We'll just watch the bleeds. So the engine bleeds need to be closed in order to make sure there's enough power going. You can see the APU's opened up. It's cross-feeding to both packs, so that's good. All right. Clear left, clear right. Let's get some lights. Frankfurt traffic, Lufthansa 1914, taking position runway 18 for departure, straight out of Neki to Lima departure.
Stop. Traffic, Lufthansa ILS 3512.
All right, so lineup, takeoff runway 18 is confirmed, TCAS is TARA, and PAX 1 and 2 are on the APU bleed. Lineup checklist is complete. Lights are all on. This is where you really notice the length of this airplane, is how far across the center line you have to go to get it to line up nicely. And that takes some getting used to. If you're used to the 320, this thing's 50% longer. Maybe not quite 50%, but it's pretty close to 50%. So I'm not doing great at it. Frankfurt traffic, Lufthansa 1914 rolling, runway 18 for departure. Manflex 54 SRS auto thrust blue. $100, Roger. B1, rotate. Positive rate. Gear up, nav. Autopilot 1. Frankfurt traffic, Lufthansa 1914 airborne off runway 18 straight out of Nike 2 Lima. Final call Frankfurt. Alright, got climb all blue. Thrust climb, auto thrust. And we can go flaps 1, speed checked. Flaps 1, now watch how long the acceleration from flaps 2 to flaps 1 will take here. We got the thrust reduced, we can go ahead and take off the APU bleed in the APU now.
Lufthansa 25 Yankee for Frankfurt traffic is able on intersection runway 18.
Alright. And away we go. Just creeping up there. She's climbing. She's climbing at 1,900 feet per minute. She's getting up there. And the beauty of this is it does have the auto retract. So at 210 knots here, boom. I don't know if you saw that there, but it went from 1 plus F to 1, which then increases the red line from 225 to 235. Now we can go flap 0, speed check, flap 0. And there we go. And actually, what did I do? I retracted the flaps when we were supposed to stay at speed 220. I fell for my own mistake. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and set our cruise altitude now and go open climb, thrust climb, open climb. And actually, let's go manage climb. Thrust climb, manage climb, all blue. And I've already forgot what it was, 30 33, 34, it was 30, it is 33. Okay, perfect. So I was supposed to keep the flaps at flaps 1 and stay at 220, and I totally forgot about that, and that's my mistake, error.
Lufthansa 2 Yankee for Frankfurt traffic.
Alright, spoilers disarmed.
Landing at runway 18 and taking off.
Let's see here, the landing gear is up, the lights can go off, the APU is shutting down. But yeah, so you can see like, and there's 5,000, so we can go ahead and set standard 1013 set. So I did make an error there, and I did retract the flaps, because it generally is your priority to retract the flaps. You've got to think about the speeds though, because in this thing, in the 320, it wouldn't be an issue even at the max weights. You probably would very rarely have a green dot above 220 after departure. But in the 321, it flies like a heavy. You've got small margins on departure. You're very tight between your minimum speed and your maximum speed. So I'm not going to accelerate anymore.
Lufthansa 5 Charlie, climbing there, possible 240,
But there we go. So now we've transitioned. And that is the last restriction. I can clear up my taxi instructions there. I don't need those anymore. We got off the ground just fine. It was nice to have a ground controller at least to sort of mitigate some of the chaos there. Alright, here comes DF-101. Alright, past DF-101 now. We can manage speed, accelerate to 250. And then when we get to 10,000, we start accelerating above 250. Especially because we are flying, pardon me, we are flying at a cost of 100. She's probably going to want to accelerate to 340. It's going to take probably about 4 or 5 minutes to do that. Well, maybe not 4 or 5 minutes, but it's going to take a little while. There's enough performance to get off the runway, but even, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but like that takeoff roll was long. The first 100 knots kind of came okay in about 15 seconds or so. And then the rest of the acceleration up to 171 just took forever. It looked like we're going to use the whole runway. Start to question, we're going to run out of it. And there have been some people who have posted in the Discords, in the Phoenix Discords, about having issues with
Lufthansa 25 Yankee for Frankfurt traffic
issues with the performance calculations. Or I think in the 319 and the 321, but there have been issues. Now, that was weird. There's the little, okay, there it is. It is going to 340 now, so now it's going to pitch down. We're at 250, it's going to accelerate to 340, it wants to gain 90 knots, and it's going to basically bring it back to like less than 1,000 foot per minute climb to do it. It's still going to take a while to do it. There's not a whole lot of surplus thrust in this aircraft. If I do that, do I get a little bit more light on me? I feel like I'm just a little bit dark in this stream today here. Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, there we go. We're underway, guys. We got it done. We're going to be in Palermo in just under 2 hours, 16:28, about an hour and 45 minutes from now. So we're just going to head south over the Alps, across the Mediterranean, and into Palermo. We're just going to do this. We don't need that, and this is what we're doing. So we're just coming straight south, more or less, across northern cut of Italy, and then straight across. And should be a beautiful arrival when we get down there, so we're going to have a little chance to look at that. I hadn't downloaded, I realized this, I went to go look at Palermo, and it's a good thing I did. I did do a few things last night. I looked over the Frankfurt airport and the Palermo airport. It's a good thing I did, because I realized that I had not downloaded the Italy World Update. I think it was World Update 9, which of course meant that it then had default scenery, so I loaded up, I'm like, oh, this looks terrible. Then I downloaded the update, 5-6 gigs later, and it looked a lot nicer. Alright, so we have almost reached our proposed climb speed of 340 knots. At 340 knots, she's going to climb immediately. I've read people in the Discord complaining about the performance of 321. Oh, it doesn't seem right. Like, you can never, it's climbing 500 feet per minute once you get to 28,000 feet. I'm like, no, that's right. That is how the 321 climbs. We are set for 33,000. The prediction is that we're going to level off at 33,000 in 120 miles. It's going to take us 120 miles to climb the next 21,000 feet. And that does seem about right. It is just, she's a pig. She's got power. She's got enough power that if an engine fails, you can continue climbing and do that sort of stuff. But there's not a lot of excess. It meets the requirements. But then, yeah, there's just not a lot of excess power, and certainly to get to altitude, especially if you're trying to climb at 340 knots, the guy complained, I'm climbing at 340 knots, I'm only getting 500 feet per minute. It's like, well, yeah, you're climbing at 340 knots. You're sacrificing your climb rate to get good airspeed. If you want to climb faster, you're going to have to reduce your airspeed. I selected a cost index of 100 specifically for this flight, just so it wouldn't turn into a long flight. But this is just a chance to kind of have some fun with Europe. I'm so glad I got to do the data link PDC there. That's something I've been wanted to try. It's not that common in North America yet. It's getting there to work through the Hoppy ACARS system. A lot of the American controllers will do it through the VATSIM chat, direct messaging system, and you'll often get a PDC through that. But to actually have it come up in the aircraft on the DCDU like that's fantastic. And that's something I really liked about flying the 777 too, was that was working as well. I wonder. One thing that the 777 also had working for it, and I'm not sure if this is an option here. See, I don't think I can. That this is one thing that the 777 did really nicely, and I hope that Fenix will kind of take a hint from this. Because I think this one of the really neatest features about the ACARS system was the 777 had an ATIS auto update feature. So not only did it allow you to request the VATSIM ATIS directly through your ACARS and have it pop up on the screen here in the aircraft, so you can look at it that way, which is much more realistic than pulling up a vPilot window, obviously. But then it also had the auto update feature, so you'd send an auto update initiation, it would send you the ATIS at that time, and then every time the ATIS updates after that, the new ATIS is automatically sent to your aircraft. So it's a contract. You send the request down and say, send me all the ATISes until I tell you otherwise, and the system will do that. It will forward you the ATIS, and until such time as you either terminate the contract or terminate the flight. If the flight terminates and the ACARS system terminates the flight, then it also cancels the contract. But otherwise, the contract keeps going, so that every time there's an update, if the winds are shifting, the runways are changing, whatever caused the ATIS to update, boom, you get it automatically without having to think about it. Oh, we have information delta. Oh, Echo's current, Foxtrot's current. Oh, okay, we'll go get that. Nope, it's already, I already have that one because it already came into the system. So I didn't get the 10,000 check, so lights off. Looks like a beautiful day. Seatbelts are going off. We'll go ahead and put airport up on here now for reference. RadNav, we did not, let's see here, RadNav, we didn't have anything tuned, so we don't have to detune anything. Secondary, we didn't do any returns, so we can recopy the secondary with the active now. And yeah, prog page cruising at 330, the max at 359, so that's pretty reasonable right now. And away we go. Whew. But I was definitely impressed with that takeoff roll. It feels like a 321. It does. It takes a lot of effort. I mean, a 171's a pretty high speed. There's a great write-up, if anybody's interested, on Fenix's website about the evolution of the 319 and the 321, the whole 320 family, and how the 319 and 321 came into being, and some of the changes and tweaks that had to be made to accommodate the heavier weights in the 321 on what is almost the same wing and with almost the same engines. But one of the really interesting things they noted is that with the XLR, not that they're modeling the XLR, but with the Neo XLR version that's coming up, Airbus is starting to run into all sorts of limitations because, again, they're stretching this airplane pretty far. The biggest thing with the XLR is bigger fuel tanks, which gets you, and as well as some other moderate efficiency improvements, which gets you a much higher range. The problem with that is, of course, you've got to take more fuel to get that range. Your takeoff weight's now going up, so I think the takeoff weight, the max takeoff weight on the XLR is going to be in the neighborhood of 103 tons. So on the 321s, the ones that I'm familiar with, anyways, the max takeoff weight you can do is about 93 tons. 91 tons. Sorry, 91 tons. So you're talking about 12 more tons. Almost 50% more fuel than you're currently carrying. You're going from 20 to 30 tons potentially of fuel, which is an immense amount of fuel. But then now they're apparently running into issues where the takeoff speeds are getting so high in this thing that they're running into the tire speed limitation. So there's a limit to how fast the tires are allowed to turn on an airplane. Just simply a physical limit. You get past a certain point, and the tires, the rotation speed of the tires, they can't flex as the tire rotates, and the bottom of the tire, as the weight of the airplane sitting on it, always is inverted. And that's why one of the reasons why tires get so hot. There's a great video I saw on YouTube of a guy who actually threw a GoPro camera inside his tire and drove around for 5 minutes, just so you can see. He didn't throw it in there, like he attached it, but just so you can see that every time the wheel rotates, the wheel gets crushed, and it's this constant flexing. The faster you go, the more often this flexing happens. That's what creates a lot of the heat, and it also creates a lot of wear on the tire. It basically approaches the limit. So the limit on most aircraft is about 190 to 195 knots, depending on exactly the tire, but you're starting to get to the limitations of the physical rubber, the ability of the material to flex fast enough without failing. The 321 XLR is approaching that limit. So you saw even today we rotated at 168 knots or 161 knots. Like the V2 speed was 171, I believe. So you're getting close to that 195 limit. If you're slow to rotate, you can hit 195 knots before you get the tires off the ground and they start decelerating. So the Airbus is starting to run some problems with this. We don't have the tanks on here right now, so it's an option depending on how the manufacturer wants to configure it with the fuel system, but you can have what are called the ACTs, or the additional center tanks. So in the airplane, you've got, they simplified the design of the fuel system in the 321, which makes it a lot easier to kind of understand and manage. You just have one tank in each wing and a center wing box tank. Let me see here. I'm going to have to turn this down because I feel like it's going to get loud as soon as I go outside here, but let's go outside. So just to have a look at it here. So the wing tanks are where most of the fuel is stored, but then there's also center tanks here. Basically, kind of the center part of where the cargo hold should be is actually fuel tanks. And what they can do as an option, because of the length of 321, is you can put actually additional fuel tanks. So you've got the standard center wing tank, which is basically about the size of the wing, and then you can have, I believe the most you can have in the 321 is 2 additional tanks, which are basically, each tank is the size of a cargo container inside the cargo compartment. So imagine the cargo compartment in here, and you can see the cargo doors. So you can imagine the size of the container going in there. So behind the wing, imagine 1 and even potentially 2 additional tanks feeding and storing fuel and feeding into the engine. Now, they don't feed directly into the engines, they just simply refill the center tank itself. Oops, that's not right, that's right. I went to Frankfurt for a second and now all my scenery unloaded. Give it a second, it'll reload itself. I can see, is that a contra or is it just a scratch? That's just a scratch or bug, whatever. So yeah, you'll have the ACTs will be down here on the diagram, their total fuel, and they just feed directly into the center tank, and the center tank no longer feeds the engine in the 321. There's no longer any fuel pumps in the center tank now. There's no longer any electric fuel pumps. The engines are always being fed from the left and the right tank. What you have in the center tank now is transfer pumps. So these are jet pumps. They're still activated the same way with the same switch, but they're not electric pumps anymore. They're just motive flow pumps. So extra fuel that goes to the engine and is pressurized by the engine pumps in excess of what's needed, that the FADEC determines isn't needed to currently, is sent back to the pump, to the tanks, and it's also sent through the center tank transfer pump. And that small amount of high pressure, high speed fuel going through that center tank pump, jet pump, transfers the fuel. It uses suction to drag a higher volume of fuel from the center tank into the left or the right tank pump. If I turn this off, it's not actually technically turning off a pump. What it's doing is it's closing the valve that is allowing that motive jet fuel to go to the jet pump. So all I've done now is I've closed that valve. What this means is that we don't have pumps constantly turning and going zzz and using up electricity and potentially being a hazard in the center tank. That's one of the reasons why Airbus sort of changed to instead of having these on all the time, you should turn these off when they're not in use on the 320 family, because they're actually physical fuel pumps. They're actually running, and without fuel flowing over them, they could get hot, they could potentially overheat, they could short. Why have them running if they're not doing anything? So that was why Airbus came up with a change in their procedure and said, turn off the center tank pumps once the center tank is empty. In the 321, it doesn't matter because these are not electric pumps. There's nothing turning there. If a little bit of fuel is flowing through here, but there's nothing for it to suck into the tank, into the center tank with it, maybe a little bit of air, it just circulates the air around, but there's nothing moving. So that's why we can leave it in auto all the time. We can leave those center tank transfer pumps on. The diagram you can see is very slightly different. It almost looks the same, but if you look, it is actually slightly different. It is correct. It does show the center tank transfer pumps going to the left and the right side instead of showing the fuel going as being pumps going to the engine. So look at that next time you're in a 320 and a 321 and look at that fuel panel. It's a little bit different. After a while, Airbus decided that this is actually a smarter way to lay out the wings, and all the 320s that are being built now have the same single tank per wing, no inner outer tank, single tank per wing, and they have the fuel transfer pumps. So this was one of those things that kind of, they tweaked the design with the 321, but then they took the improvements and said, we made it better, let's backdate those improvements. I guess the other thing too about the jet pump and the fuel pumps is they are probably a little bit lighter. The fuel pumps are probably a pretty substantial pump to make sure that there's enough motor flow to provide the engines at all times. So you got to think that a jet pump, a simple mechanical, pump based on physics with no actual mechanics to it, you got to think that's going to be easier for. It's going to be less weight. It's going to be easier to maintain with no moving parts, less likely to break, so reliability is increased as well. And so like Airbus has brought that back to the 320. And that's the thing is when they started with the 320, I mean, I don't think they knew how successful it was going to be. So it was, it was a bit of a, I won't say a shoestring budget, but we got to kind of get it out there. And then when the 320 was successful, they introduced the 321. They had to make changes to support the 321. They had to tweak the wing to increase the lift. They had to increase the thrust out of the engines. They had to do more to increase the weight. So some of the efficiencies that were then created were then backdated to the 320. In some cases as optional packages. In some cases they were automatically included as the factory standard after a certain point. So you'll see some of these things you'll see a lot of stuff in the Neo looks a lot like the 321. The Neo, especially because it was built after a certain point, took a lot of these things and said these are efficiencies that are going to get us the efficiency gains we need to make the specs that the airlines want. So instead of making it optional, say, well, you don't have to have that extra efficiency package, they basically made it, no, this is now fixed. All of them are coming with this because we need to show the efficiency gains. It's crazy when you think of the breadth and the width of the A321 family, though. And the A320 family in general. I was looking at airfleets.net the other day, and it's crazy how many have been made. It's eclipsed the 737 now as the most popular airliner of all time. But the order book now for the A320 A320 family is just gone absolutely insane. So if you go right to the very end of airfleets.net here, and I'm trying to get to the end here, and it takes a while because there's been a lot of So Airbus has now delivered, they're up to, looks like the highest serial number delivered is 12,246. So to date, for the entire A319, 320, 321, A318 as well family, for the whole A320 family, there have been over 12,200 aircraft delivered, which means it's now surpassed the 737, because I think the 737 is just a little past 10,000, which is even crazier when you think that Airbus is only on the second generation. The 320 only came out 25 years after the 37, and they've now outsold the 37, and still going. The order book is insane. That's just the number of aircraft that are basically have allocated serial numbers. There's a few on order. The highest serial number I see here is 12,556. It's on order. It hasn't. It's in production, but it hasn't actually been delivered yet. But there's another 5,000, 6,000 320s on order. So if you were to just finish that, if you were to say we're not going to take any new orders, it would still be over 20,000 320s produced, or close to 20,000 320s produced. I don't even know. Let's see here. I'm just going to Wikipedia because Wikipedia is always good for this sort of thing. Let's see here. Yeah, the current backlog for the 320 family backlog stands at 7,100 units across the entire family. That includes the Neos. That's crazy. 7,100 units is the backlog out of a total 18,684 delivered and ordered. So their backlog now represents more than 1/3 of the total number of production units. I mean, I'm just curious to think how long it's going to take them to get through the backlog. Deliveries, let's see here. The last year that Wikipedia has delivery data for is 2015. Airbus was up to almost 500 deliveries a year. That's still, and I know they're ramping up production, but you're still talking, at 500 a year, at 7,000 units, like that would be 14-year backlog. I think they've ramped the production up a little bit more than that. But even so, you're looking at, it's a 10-year backlog potentially. Let's see, the A320 family. $75 aircraft per month is the goal by 2026, which is so that would be 900 a year. So even so, at 900 a year, that's still like an 8 to 9 year backlog. Like, what company wouldn't love to have 9 years of orders for their product already done, sold, done? Some of these airlines won't exist when their orders come up, probably. There's a good chance some of them will probably be bankrupt before their orders ever come in, because that's just the way the nature of the business. The airlines sometimes go bankrupt, but it's just crazy. All right, we've leveled off at 33,000. We did have a step climb in our flight plan here, up to 35. It looks like we're going to be capable of it soon here. Let's see here. The step climb was scheduled for POCAV. Let's just have a... Yeah, let's just do it this way. It's just easier sometimes to do it this way. POCAV. Did we already... No, POCAV is way down here. We could already go up to 35. We have 36.2 as a max. You definitely want always at least 1,000. This, by the way, this number right here, you're going to be stretched to get to that number ever. I would highly recommend you never go more than 1,000 below that number as a target. If you're getting close to that, if you hit the slightest little bump, your coffin corner is going to be tiny. We actually had an issue the other day. We were 1,000 feet underneath our max. I think it was pretty much this.
Traffic looks.
We were eastbound. We were supposed to go to 35, and we had a max of about 36. And the margin was so small, and then we had to do a turn. And it was a pretty good turn. Like, it was a pretty good turn along our route. It was about a 30-degree turn. The margin was so small that the speed actually dropped below the green dot speed. We were about... Our speed target was about 10 knots above green dot, and our speed target actually dropped below green dot while we're making the turn and wouldn't come back. Once we got below green dot, it's almost impossible to get back if you don't have a lot of surplus power. When you're at the high altitudes where you don't have surplus power, it's almost impossible to accelerate again. We actually had to descend the airplane because even though we were below the recommended max by over 1,000 feet, it was, as soon as we made that turn, it was just too much lift was given to the turn. The other problem is that this max is based on the entered numbers, so your entered zero fuel weight, which is not very accurate when you start to think about it. So this is a problem that we have in the industry, is that these ZFW numbers are these weights we come up with for the, not so much the aircraft itself, but for everything in the back of the airplane. So all the people, all the cargo, everything. We could weigh the cargo, but we don't normally weigh people, so we just use averages and estimates. And across 200 people, your estimate could be out by a lot. And especially when you consider how much luggage people are bringing with them these days. Every 5 to 10 years, we're supposed to resurvey all the passengers, not all the passengers, but do a random sampling survey and decide if we need to increase the standard weights to represent society as a whole. Over time, over the last 100 years, people have gotten heavier. Over the last 10 to 20 years, their bags have gotten a lot heavier because your carry-on bag is part of your weight. it's not accounted for in the cargo weight. Normally when we check a bag, we weigh that bag, and then the weights in the cargo compartments should be pretty accurate. And here's why you don't want a coffin corner, because that's pretty tight there. We almost went to the red line there. But the passenger weights, because what goes in the cabin, what the carry-on bags are included in the standard passenger weights, that can vary a lot from person to person. You see some people come on just with a small backpack or a little, you know, just a little bag with like a book or something and a snack in it. And you see other people bring their entire, you know, carry-on rollerboard suitcase, and that's fine. But like, there's so much variation to that. So, you know, we're constantly having to kind of reevaluate these average numbers that we use and decide if they're accurate and precise enough for what we're trying to do. And the neat thing about Airbus is that Airbus will actually tell you how much the airplane weighs. The Fenix system will not do it, but the real airplane will actually tell you how much it thinks the airplane weighs, based on... Nope, not that. There we go. What if I do this? There we are. Takes a second for this to catch up. But based on this, the angle of attack sensor, more than anything else, the angle of attack sensor. And the airplane, once it takes off, the computers in the airplane will use the angle of attack sensors, figure out how much lift it takes to maintain this aircraft in flight, and will come up with a very realistic weight for the aircraft. And how much that weight is out from what's on here is sometimes phenomenal. So you'll actually be able to get into it through the MCDU and look at the computer's parameter of what it thinks the weight is, because these speeds, the green dot speed, the LS speed, you know, the alpha protection speeds, the alpha max speeds, they're all based on the actual angle of attack that the airplane's operating at, which is an indirect way of figuring out what the actual weight is. So it's not using the predicted weights. It does before you take off, but once you take off, it then converts and says, okay, based on the airflow over the airplane and what I know about the temperature and the density of the air and all that other stuff, I know exactly what this airplane weighs by how much of an angle of attack it needs to keep enough lift. And so it calculates a number. And that number is off by sometimes an almost shocking amount. I've seen it off by as much as 3 tons, where the airplane is 3 tons actually heavier than what our paperwork would have us believe. So right now, based on the paperwork, this airplane is coming in at 78.8 tons, but I've gone into the computers. Usually it's not that far off. It's usually off by at least a ton. It's usually at least a ton heavier. We're almost always on the heavy side, but yeah, I've seen it be as much as 3 tons heavier. So instead of thinking it's almost 79 tons, it's actually at 82 tons. And so that's one of the reasons why oftentimes your recommended max is not terribly realistic, depending on how much heavier you are how much heavier you are in reality than what the numbers that were crunched by the company actually are. And it's not to say that anyone's doing this intentionally. I don't think anybody's doing this intentionally. Everyone's doing their best to kind of come up with the most realistic numbers they can, but just there's a lag to the overall system in terms of like when we do a weight survey, how long it takes to evaluate the results of that and implement those results into all of our systems. That takes time. It takes time for us to get all that done. So I don't think anybody's trying to necessarily deceive anything, but it's crazy how much these estimated weights can be out from what the actual reality is, and Airbus will actually tell you. The Fenix system doesn't actually do it because the Fenix system doesn't include the maintenance system. Oh, there's an ATIS for LICJ? Get out. Oh, too bad I can't get it through... Okay, well, anyways, I'm just going to bring it up right now. ATIS details, just so I have something to work on when the time comes. Romeo at 1420, expect ILS approach, arrival runway 25, departure 25, transition level 65. Winds 320 at 8, visibility 10 kilometers, view 2,500 feet, scattered 7,000 feet, temperature 29, dew point 22, QNH 1012. Alright, so right now 25 is the estimate for LICJ, which is what we've got, so that's good. Let's just have a little look-see here. So we are going to arrive at 1624, which is 1 hour and 20 minutes from now. So we got about 20 more minutes to chat, and then we'd probably have to start thinking about setting up here. So crossing over the Alps now. We're going to head over Italy shortly, and yeah. What else can I talk about, though? One thing that actually kind of a little side train of thought that sort of came into my brain there while I was talking about the production of the 320 and how long the backlog is. This is creating a real problem for world airlines that are trying to grow their business and, you know, have to make fleet plans the better parts of a decade in advance. So, you know, with that backlog that Airbus has right now, like, yeah, they are, you know, if you walk into the Airbus factory tomorrow morning and say, I want to buy an Airbus A320, they're going to say, okay, we'll deliver it to you in 2033. 2032. That's what we're looking at. Maybe if we find someone else, maybe you can buy a production slot from somebody else. But literally, if an airline starts up tomorrow, wants to buy new airplanes, they're looking at potentially 7-8 years. Now, I know there are other ways around the system. There are leasing companies that buy blocks of airplanes and then lease them out to people who are looking for airplanes and that. But the overall constraint of supply versus demand in the airframe market is quite shocking, frankly, right now. That the order books have to go out that far. It's great for the manufacturers because they, like I said, like what manufacturer would not love to have orders scheduled for the next 7 to 8 years and know where your income for the next 7 to 8 years is coming from? You know, what a great business model. You got to keep selling because you got to keep that order book full. But boy, what a great business model. But for the airlines that, you know, maybe are trying to shift their strategy, the economy changes, demographics change. They're trying to shift their strategy. It takes a long time to shift that strategy now because you have to plan so far in advance. What if the unexpected occurs? So that's what really kind of came to my mind. Those of you that didn't see the news, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Calgary, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, Calgary had like a hailstorm roll right over the airport, like a major hailstorm. We're talking like tennis ball sized hail was falling on the airport. And the immediate news story was that, of course, the airport was damaged. There was a lot of damage to a lot of things. There were lots of homes in the area that were damaged. Roofs, siding was knocked off. But then it kind of came right over the airport. So the parking lot at the airport, it was just, it was very unfortunate because literally thousands, potentially tens of thousands of vehicles damaged, a lot of windows smashed during a rainstorm by hail. So then, of course, these cars, not only did they have their windows smashed, but then they were soaked on the inside by all the rain that fell with it. You know, hoods dented, roofs dented, like just absolute madness. You know, most of the long-term parking lots, they said we're not even contacting customers about their vehicle because we just have too many. They're waiting for the customers to call them and say, hey, is my vehicle okay? And they can check on it and find it and see. But they were not even proactively contacting customers because literally they had thousands upon thousands of vehicles that were damaged that they had to inform their customers about. So hand in hand with that, with all that vehicle damage, was aircraft damage. There were a lot of airplanes. Of course, Calgary's a pretty big airport. It's a pretty major airport. There were dozens upon dozens of airplanes parked around the terminal, of course, just like a normal day. And the amount of hail that fell was not only the amount, but also the size and intensity of it was quite shocking. So first of all, the airport flooded. The hail damaged the waterproof membrane on the roof of one of the concourses, and then the rain that was just pouring down on the terminal building just started pouring into the terminal building. So they had to evacuate an entire concourse. I believe it's Concourse B at Calgary is now completely blocked off. If I can go to that for a second. Because the damage was, I won't say it was extensive, but it was extensive enough that they need to repair the roof. They need to repair all the water damage that occurred. And make sure that it's not going to flood anymore if it does rain again. Not even that hard, but necessarily just because the waterproof membrane that's supposed to keep the inside of the terminal dry was what was ruptured by all this hail. So this entire concourse B here, is completely shut down. It's just completely blocked off, boarded up, and of course there's repairs underway, but it's going to take some time to do that. So you've reduced the capacity at this airport. That's a number of gates there. I could look it up here anyways, but if I go here and do not this one, but do this one here, I think it's about 10 gates or so that are now shut down at this airport. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 gates that are shut down at this airport because of all that water damage. Not only that, but the damage to WestJet's fleet is actually shockingly extensive. As the primary airline in Calgary, it is their hub, So not only do they have airplanes parked around the terminal, but they also have a hangar just south of the terminal here where they had a few airplanes parked on their ramp. So they had a number of airplanes parked around the airport. Some, were just getting ready for a flight. Some were, waiting maintenance or whatever. But they were stuck out there in this hailstorm. Apparently the hailstorm was so bad and dented the tops of the wings of these airplanes so badly that there's a chance that WestJet may have to write off up to 18 airplanes, which represents about 10% of their fleet that they may have to just write off because I think they're in discussions with Boeing, but even the engineers at Boeing are like, oh, we don't know what to do. We've never seen airplanes this damaged. We don't know how to repair this damage. We don't know if you can repair this damage. So the tops of the fuselage got damaged, but I think it's the wings that are the critical structure that obviously you need the wings to maintain a certain shape, maintain certain smooth airflow in order to be usable. You can have a few dents in the fuselage usually, and it doesn't affect too much. It increases the drag a little bit, maybe decreases the efficiency of the airplane, but it doesn't affect the airplane so much. But the wings, they have to be smooth, especially on the top surface. The airflow over the top surface has to be smooth, or you could potentially get a wing stall at a much higher speed than you'd expect. Think about like icing. You don't want to be stuck with a lot of ice accumulated on top of your wing because that's going to potentially cause you to stall instead of being able to lift off the ground and have enough lift to get the airplane in the air. So yeah, WestJet may have a serious problem for the next potentially couple years if they have to write off 10% of their fleet because they were stuck in this hailstorm and the wings are considered not repairable. And it comes down to they can't buy replacement airplanes easily because Boeing doesn't have the backlog that Airbus does, but it does have a backlog. Boeing has their own problems with production rates because they, of course, have quality control problems that I don't even want to get into. We've talked about that in previous streams, but yeah, they are putting out planes at a very low rate right now. Their production rate is down to like 1 or 2 a month for the 37, I think, because the FAA has basically hammered down and said you need to slow down and actually make sure you're doing everything. That was me. I hit the autopilot button there, so there you go. Just curious to Google 737 production rate. Because they were looking to get up to 57 aircraft per month, and now they're down to what am I doing here? So here's an interesting chart. Found this on Forbes here, but just saw this. But Boeing 737 family deliveries spanning 6 decades, and so production increased. Here's your, I guess this is probably your order book on the top, and this is your production on the bottom, right? So you can see, like, they've had generally a steady climb, and especially as the NG series came out, they started to get orders for them, and they started to produce them. And then, yeah, and then, of course, we had the MAX debacle, and even now, here we are, a couple of years later, and they're still way behind where they should be. They're delivering maybe 400 airplanes a year instead of, Airbus is trying to deliver like 700, 800, 900. So they're doing work at half the rate, and I think this predates the yeah. No, this includes, yeah. So they've been planning 42 aircraft per month before the Alaska accident, but now the FAA has limited to 38 and has told them, like, you can't make more than that because you need to get your house in order. You need to make sure that everything that's being produced is being produced properly. Doesn't have quality control issues, that you're actually, any issues that do come up, you have time to address them. Part of the problem was that the production line was moving so fast, Spirit Aerosystems especially, they're like, nope, we just got to get it out the door. However many defects are in the fuselage, send it out the door, let it get fixed at Boeing. Boeing's got to send them out the door. They've only got so much space in the factory. It's just, yeah, it was, yeah. So just think about that. Like, if Boeing couldn't, WestJet couldn't walk up to Boeing tomorrow and say, hey, we lost 18 airplanes. The insurance is going to cover that. Can we buy 18 more just to get our fleet back to where we want it to be? They can't do that. It's not an option. There's not the sufficient production capacity. And that's the unfortunate truth of the matter. So WestJet could end up really having to...
Kilo 3 Juliet Sierra is approaching inler for Malpensa traffic. We are 10 miles down for runway 35 left.
So WestJet could have a real problem over the next potentially couple years, half a decade, playing catch-up behind this. It's not an easy thing. Tomorrow morning, yeah, it's interesting to think about. Tomorrow morning, trying to not just grow your company, but just to recover from a major hit like that can take a long time, and you've kind of planned on that. So now you've got to recover from that, and it gets to thinking about tomorrow morning at 12:01. The rail workers in Canada are all going on strike. The two major railways in Canada. There's two major railways that are 95% or more of the business in Canada, and they also do a lot of business in the U.S. They're actually in North America. The railway networks are so tightly integrated that even in the U.S. it's going to be a problem. But the workers at the two major railways in Canada are going on strike tomorrow morning at 12:01, assuming a deal is not reached. The implications of this are huge because it's not something you think about. It's not something that's front of mind anymore because rail deliveries do not necessarily directly go to a lot of businesses anymore, but a lot of the long distance freight travels by rail still through the containerization system. So that you'll get trucks that'll pick stuff up locally. They'll haul the container to a nearby rail yard where it'll get loaded on a flat car, and then it'll go across the country on a train. So you take them out of the equation. There's not enough trucks to do the job to pick up the slack if the railways stop hauling cargo. There's certain bulk cargoes that just don't work well on trucks. There's petroleum, grain. There's so many things that rely on the railways, and the other thing, even food security could be an issue. For Canada, especially because we rely on a lot of our produce to be imported from the U.S. from the southern parts of the U.S. from the California, the Imperial Valley and all those places where they grow like the majority of the produce in the U.S. A lot of that also gets shipped to Canada. So especially some of the more remote locations in Canada, you rely on trains to ship these refrigerated containers across the country in a relatively quick fashion. Without the trains being able to transport them, a week or so, you may not notice much of a difference. You may notice a little drop in some of the supplies, but after a week or two, you may start to notice that the produce section at your local grocery store starts to seem pretty barren. But the interesting thing, one economist was looking at it, they said for every day that the railways are on strike, it's potentially, it's generally about a week to recover from that. So if they go on strike for one day, it's going to be at least a week for them to kind of get their network back to normal and get the backlog and bottlenecks cleared out of the system. If they go on strike for a week, it could be 2 months before the backlogs are cleared out and the system gets back up and running. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. I'm hoping that the railways will finally come to the table and give the workers some of what they need, because I think the biggest thing is and the railways are probably one of the good examples of what hyper-capitalism has done and has ruined economies in a lot of cases. 100 years ago, 150 years ago, the railways were the common carriers. It pretty much didn't matter what you had to ship. You had to ship it by rail. It was the only way to get things any long distance away. And the railways did that. They shipped almost anything anybody would ask them. You load it, here's a boxcar, load it up, tell us where you want it to deliver it, and we'll do it. Then you get into the 1960s and 70s, you get into, the railways obviously had problems competing with trucks. The only ways that the railways kind of remain profitable right now is bulk commodities. So most of the smaller businesses along the tracks got the shaft, and basically unless you were a bulk commodity that was dealing in full train loads of shipments, coal is one of the big ones that trains still carry a lot of, but that sort of thing, coal, large amounts of grains, a lot of like the larger, heavier natural resources. The small stuff along the way just got lost. Nobody wanted to carry it around anymore, and now we're in this era of like hyper-focused, like super efficient railways. But and they are private businesses. I will 100% grant them that. But a lot of private businesses do public good, and the railways do a lot of public good. They provide an essential public service by shipping cargo vast distances when it needs to be shipped. But the fact that they are so focused on efficiency, hyper efficiency, and they're running these longer and longer trains with less and less people. Now they talk about they want to just run these, 3 or 4 kilometer long trains with one person controlling this whole 4 kilometer train that weighs, potentially thousands of tons. One person controlling it. And it's not that one person can't do the job, but human beings are somewhat fallible. what if you have to ask yourself these questions. What if the person has a heart attack? What if they fall asleep at the switch? It's possible. And with some of the shifts and shift work, the trains run 24/7, so you got some guys working day shifts, but you got some guys working night shifts. The whole idea of not having somebody to back you up, and what about when you have to use the washroom? That train will be fine for 3 or 4 minutes while I sit in the can. Like, it's the same thing that like Airbus is trying to get single pilot flight decks out there, and I think it's a terrible idea, and not just for job security's sake, but just the redundancy, knowing what goes on, the redundancy, the backup. You've got somebody to back you up, somebody who's going to say, hey, that doesn't look right, or oops, you did something wrong, or hey, you need to go to the bathroom, or hey, are you awake? The human physiological factors limits. These are the problems we're going to run into in the next with the next generation, where they're trying to make these single pilot airplanes. It's not so much that it's a technically overwhelming workload, although if an emergency happens, it can quickly become overwhelming. I've seen many simulated emergencies happen, and I've seen how fast the workload goes from 0 to 100. And if you've only got one person trying to handle that and do all those things and prioritize everything and get everything done, it's too much sometimes for one person. And then just to have somebody where you can, pass off some of this work too, knowing that you have to get it all done. I don't see any advantage to it, really. You're going to save some money on salaries maybe, but Airbus has applied to EASA, and EASA has basically said, show us that the level of safety with 1 pilot in the flight deck is equivalent to the level of safety with 2 pilots in the flight deck. If you can say it's the equivalent level of safety, there's no drop in the level of safety when you take 1 pilot off the flight deck, we'll allow it. Which I have a hard time seeing how you could make that statement quantitatively, that it's just as safe with 1 pilot as 2. I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe I'm naive. I know technology can do wonderful things, but I mean, just look at the problems they have with self-driving cars, and those only operate in a 2-dimensional world. In a 3-dimensional world of aviation, the problems are just compounded. And yes, there's a lot of automation in these airplanes, but these automation only works when people are monitoring it and making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do, and sometimes it doesn't. The other day yesterday I did a flight in the 321, and everything was going hunky-dory. It was fine. Stuff was good. And then I went up to say goodnight to my kids. I'm like, okay, I'll leave the airplane for like 5 minutes. I'll go say goodnight to my kids. I'll come back, and then I'll finish the flight. In the 5 minutes I was gone, for some reason the autopilot kicked off. I bet there was a wind shift like there was just now. It probably went to overspeed, kicked off the autopilot. The plane had gone from like 33 to 39,000 feet. Was off course by like 15 miles, all in a space of less than 5 minutes. Because the autopilot kicked off. Because I was monitoring at that particular time. So these systems do need to be monitored to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. We can't rely on them. They're not 100% reliable. Certainly not reliable. The reliability level is not enough that we can step away and say we can put people's lives in the hands of these computers without somebody babysitting them. Anywho, there goes the coast of Italy. Beautiful. Nice. We're going to just sort of sail over the Mediterranean here. We are now about 1 hour from landing. We'll start setting up here in a minute. Hopefully we do still have this Palermo ground controller still there. Palermo. I don't know why I say Palermo. Palermo ground controller. Yeah. Still got a ways to go, but we're getting there. Maybe we'll get some other controllers, maybe not. It's got kind of quiet on Unicom now. It's not like Frankfurt. Frankfurt was a little busy there. But yeah, I picked this airport not so much for the target for the ATC, but because I thought it was going to be some real nice eye candy when we got there. I've never flown to Palermo, actually, in reality, or in the sim, or in Ciali or the sim. So I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing how nice the scenery looks. It looks like a little bit of a hazy day out here, but not too bad at all. It looks like nice clear skies all the way down. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think though I might take about a 3-minute break from the flight deck though right now, because that coffee cup is pretty big. Maybe if I could just turn down the volume a little bit, I can put you on the outside view. Oh, well, there's the landing gear. That was not a great outside view. Let's see what I can do here. It's funny how, like, over time, the the drone camera, it rotates in pitch and roll. This definitely looks like a little bit of a dirty airplane here. A little bit of dirt around the cell strakes there. Just trying to find that nice view. There you go. That's pretty nice there. I'll leave you guys with that, I think. All right, so 2-3 minutes here, just to drain the coffee away, and then we'll come back and we'll start setting up for that arrival into Palermo. So stick with me, guys. I'll be right back. I guess it helps if I mute myself as well. But there we go. Wrong button initially, but there we go. Sailing past Italy. I haven't done too much flying in Europe. I think I would like to start doing more and more flying in Europe, because the one thing about Europe is that there's a lot of VATSIM ATC in Europe. If you like VATSIM ATC, and especially if you fly during the day, like I do a lot, I tend not to be an evening flyer. I tend to be a morning, afternoon flyer. I should be flying in Europe because that's where you'll get the ATC. The only thing is that it's not that, it's just the system. I'm not used to it. I'm not used to it, and I get not even quite nervous and anxious. Would probably be a little bit of an extreme, but I don't like to feel uncomfortable when I'm doing this. I like to know what I'm doing, and the best way to learn to know more about what you're doing is to do it, of course, absolutely. But yeah, anywho, let's hop in the. Why can't I not get back on the flight deck? There we go. I was like, can't get back in the flight deck. I guess we're going to land from out here, I guess. All right. Okay. So again, I'm going to just double check the ATIS here in Palermo. It's a pity I cannot get it. And that's one thing that I would really like to see Fenix come up with. And I know they're working on stuff all the time. They did say they're working on ACTs. They're working on sharklets. You know, I'm sure there's a laundry list of improvements that they would like to make to the aircraft, especially now that 319 and 321 have come out, and there's a laundry list of complaints about things not quite being right in their Discord. So I'm sure that that's some of what they would like to work on. But I think better ACARS integration ATISs. I think ATISs are almost more important than CPTLC, because especially that auto function, the 777, was just fantastic. I did the last live stream. I went to, where did we go to? We went to Stockholm, and I turned on auto ATIS like an hour and a half before landing. I got like 4 ATIS updates. It just goes bing bing, and you know there's an ATIS, and you go look down and you have the latest information at all times without having to always ask for it. All right, so again, this information is Sierra. I think this is new, 1450. Arrivals 25 transition level 65. 320 at 8, 10 kilometers. Looks like a nice day, 29 degrees. Okay, so first things first, before I even come up with numbers, or before I even come up with a flight plan, let's just confirm that we can land in Palermo, and it should be fine. Runway 25. Dry runway. It looks like it's a dry runway. Let's refresh the METAR. Let's apply that. 29 degrees, wind 320 at 8. Landing weight. This is always going to be interesting. So 77.4. We finally got below max landing weight now. So we're going to land at about 75.8. So let's do numbers for 76 tons. Let's call it an even 76. 76 tons. If I do low auto brake, idle reverse, manual landing, flap full, auto thrust on. Do I need to put? I need to put 76.0, or will not recognize that this is a complete point. Weird. 76.0. What am I missing? Alright, let's do 76.1 maybe. 76.1. Why will it not make the calculation for me? Am I forgetting something? It's runway 25. Weird. Why is it not making the calculation for me? Huh. Don't know why it's not doing the calculation, but I have a backup. Sim brief. Tell me about landing performance in Palermo. A321-200, runway 25, feet, weight, kilograms, let's call it 76,000 kilos. Does it think that 75.5 is my max landing weight? Because it seems to not want to go any higher than that. 75. Yeah, it seems to think that's 70. 75.5 is the max landing weight. Well, close enough anyway. So it'll give me a good sense of how we're doing here. Full optimum brake setting, reverse credit. We're up at 5, 29 degrees. That all looks good. All right, so factor distance, actual land distance 7,056. Factored 8,900, which gives us a margin still of 1,311 feet. So the factor distance, it gives us a margin of 1,311 feet. So I'd say we can do auto brake low. I don't think that's going to be a problem. All right, let's have a look at the charts here. Where'd my Navigraph go? Did I close that? I must have closed it. Let's bring up the charts and let's just check the transition and make sure we're happy with everything here. We probably don't need the fuel page up here anymore. Come on, go away, go away. Oh my god. Navigraph, you're killing me here. Look at the whole sim froze for like a minute. Not a minute, but like 20 seconds. And then the whole airplane has to catch up. Alright, you're killing me, Navigraph. You're killing me. I forget what we were doing. Giano, but I forget which one. It was the 5 Lima. Giano 5 Lima. Alright, and that sets us up for runway 25. Yeah, it does. Giano, come all the way over here. Alright, so that looks like a very reasonable way to set up for an approach to runway 25. There are supposed to be ILSs to 25. Why is it not, why didn't it only give me localizer as an option? Because when I went in here, all it gave me was localizer. It didn't give me ILS. guess their ILS approaches are labeled as localizer approaches. All right. Well, anyways. So where does the Giano 5 Lima end anyways? It ends at Lavru. So I could do any of these from Lavru, because I kind of almost want to do an RNAV. I've done an RNAV for a little while here. So I kind of want to do an RNAV, maybe not an LPV. Maybe just the RNAV Zulu. Do this as a final app. Because the other thing I want to try, I haven't tried this yet, I would like to try this, is if we go into the Fenix app here, airframe, PCD, DDRY, no, L deviation. I want to see if this works, if we can get lateral deviation for the green bar at the bottom here. So I want to do the final app approach. So yeah, let's do that. Let's plan the RNAV. Looks like a nice day anyway. So let's plan the RNAV Zulu. It'll be a CFDA approach anyways, but let's plan the RNAV Zulu runway 25. RNAV Zulu 25. And again, should be able to fly the Giano 5 Lima. It should be the same transition. Alright, so still a nav. That didn't change our flight plan here. Let's start looking at it here and make sure that everything makes sense. Alright, so I'm going to bring this up here like this. I'm going to bring this down here, and I am going to scroll through the waypoints on the tablet. Alright, so first, Giano 5 Lima. Alright, no real notes. Transition level by ATC today at 6,500. Or flight level 65 anyways. Giano 5 Lima takes you all the way to Lavru, and it should be everything in there. So let's just check this out here. So Giano. So there's Giano. And Giano between 23 and 8,000. Yeah, it's a big range, but there you go. Iblet above 8,000. And then for us, it's CJ426, max 210 above 5,000. Then Absid, max 210 between 5 and 8. Orvan, 210 at 5,000. Redco, above 4,000. Binpu, max 200 above 4,000. Omvif, max 200 above 4,000. There's a hold at Lavru. Yes, there is. Okay. I'm going to leave the hold in there, but I'm going to assume we're going to skip it. Yeah, so 3,000. So Avru, above 3,500, max 185 knots. So there's a lot of speed restrictions on here, so I'm going to fly this carefully. And then after Avru, we'll fly the approach. So we're going to plan the RNAV, the RNP Zulu runway 25 from Lavru. After that, it's CJ532 above 3,000. And CJ533 should be at 1380. I got 1379. That looks good for a CFDA there. CDFA. And then for the missed approach, we just go direct to color. And hold there at 3,000 feet. Alright, so that all looks sensible. Let's see here. If I look down at this for a second here, whoa, that's way not right. Anywho, so you'll see that the only place that the descent angle is hard-tuned is after CJ532. So we have to be inbound to CJ532 before we can arm final app. We'll follow final app down there. Yeah. We have poppies both sides, high intensity approach lighting system. We got all good stuff there. So that all looks good. We'll have to keep an eye on all the restrictions as we come in here. Max 185 knots, that's repeated there at Lavru again. For RNAV system with holding functionality only. For RNAV system without holding functionality. 1, 4.2, 5.8. And this is direct entry only. Okay, RadNav, I've got nothing to tune on that. Prog page, let's just put LICJ 25, just so we have a readout, distance readout anytime we need it. 244 miles still to go. Performance. All right, so cruise is fine, but we do not want to go down at 340. So I'm going to change this to 0.74, but I'm going to change this to 320 knots. That way, with the 20 knot window you get on your airspeed, we'll always still be below the red line. We'll always be at least 10 knots below the red line, even when we're within that window. If you do 340, then the top of the window is the red line. If you're at the top of the window, which is legally allowed, not legally allowed, but is allowed by the software, you just have to go 1 knot up and you're in the red line. All right, QNH. All right, so again, pull on my ATIS. I'm just doing it here on my other screen here. QNH is somewhere there, 1012. Temperature is 29 degrees, and the winds are showing, where are they here? 320 degrees at 8. 320 degrees at 8. So the Barrow VNAV, this is a constant descent angle. Is this a decision altitude or a minimum decision altitude or a minimum descent altitude? That's a little bit misleading. It should either be a DA or an MDA. I'm going to take away, I'm going to add the 50 feet. So I'm going to say 1430, because normally if you're on a non-precision approach, this is the lowest altitude you can descend to. This is not the altitude you decide at. The difference between a decision altitude and MDA. A decision altitude is an altitude where you go down. At that altitude, you make the decision, and then you do go around there, and you'll go below that altitude, but there's an allowance for that before you start going up. So that's what most ILSs have, is decision altitude. A minimum descent altitude is, this is the lowest you can go unless you're committed to landing. So you have to make your decision in such a way that you do not go below this line. So generally, the rule for MDAs is you add 50 feet. That allows you to lose 50 feet during the go-around. You call go-around, flaps, and you come up here. You don't lose more than 50 feet. You don't go below that MDA. Whereas DH, you're allowed to go below DH during the go-around. MDA, you're not allowed to go below during the go-around. You have to be above the MDA at all times. DH, you're making the decision at DH. Your go-around is going to be below that, but that's accepted and assumed. All right, 3,000 feet for the acceleration and missed approach and the engine out acceleration altitude. There we go, 3,000 feet. So those are set, and I'm doing it on here. I didn't mean to. Fuel prediction, showing 2 tons of extra, so we do have 59 minutes of extra fuel. That's lots of extra fuel. Secondary, what we'll do for the secondary is we'll recopy it, and then we will, we'll go back to the ILS. And now, so what's the difference between the 3 ILSs here? Because there's 3 ILS approaches. Look Whiskey, look Yankee, look Zulu. Zulu, look Yankee. Got the big procedure turn on it there, so we don't need the loc Yankee. And then the loc Whiskey. I'm not really sure what the difference is between the Zulu and the Whiskey here. The minimums look about the same. I honestly don't know what the difference is. I'm trying to spot the difference. And I can't spot the difference. So we're going to go with the localizer ILS Zulu 25. We're by the same arrival. That should work. And so let's just go through this whole thing here. So Orvan Redcope into Omvif. And then after Omvif, it should be going direct to Lavru. And let's go back up and look at this again here. It should all be the same. Omvif above 4,000, Lavru above 3,500. Yeah, that's all still there. Down to 3,000 and the Clyde slope there. Yeah, that all looks good. This just has FF25 and 70 loc. 40 loc. So This is FF25, this is 70 loc, this is 40 loc, 0.2 loc. These are just all checkpoints, basically. ML25, and then missed approaches to Salop. 290, outbound 321 to Salop. That all looks good. I just need to go into secondary, and the minimums for this are 500 feet. Yeah. Now I'm stuck in the secondary performance, and because I copied it, all this data is loaded. We just need to change the minimums here. $700. No, sorry, 500. Oh, I said 700. 500. And then this one is also 3,000, so that's fine. That should all still fit them. Okay, perfect. So, let's go back to ARC mode here. Our proposed touchdown time is 16:23. So at 15:53, we would need to PA 30 minutes to landing. So there's the 15:53 time call there. Kind of left Italy over in the dust over there, but Palermo should be straight ahead. All right, and I think I'm ready for a briefing. So technical status of the airplane, I didn't fail anything today. Nothing failed automatically, so looking good so far. NOTAMs I didn't actually look through, so let's have a quick look here at the NOTAMs. Just make sure there's nothing crazy going on. Very little. Beacon unserviceable, let beacon withdrawn. Okay, very easy. Okay, so this is the Giano 5 Lima arrival into Palermo, Italy, 10-2. Let's see here. The routing constraints are all as published. That being said, it is a windy route to get to final. I am very likely, some point after Iblet, going to maybe go direct Binpu or even Onvif and just kind of round out that whole thing rather than do the whole back and forth, unless there's traffic, but I don't think there's that much traffic inbound. There's a couple of airplanes inbound. There's a WizzAir that's going to be there about the same time as us, give or take. So we'll see how that's working out, but the plan is probably we're going to shortcut through part of the arrival because we don't need it. We don't have an ATC control. We have a ground control. That's all we have in Palermo. So we're going to go to gate. We're going to go to stand 212 in Palermo. All right. So yeah, at the Lavru, the plan is to transition to the RNP Zulu runway 25, plate 12-5. Flown as a final lap approach. So RNAV, the final approach course is 244. The check height at CJ 532 will be 3,000. DA is 1380 plus 50, so I put 1430 on there. And sorry, the MDA. And the missed approach is turn right, max 185 knots to intercept and follow track 022 to 3,000 feet to color and hold. MSA is 7,700 around the airport, mostly because we've got high terrain over the island itself to the south. So escape is to the back to the north, out over open water. Standard 3-degree descent path. Pappies on both sides to guide us once we get down below the minimums. High intensity approach lighting system. RVR 5,000 meters. It's a beautiful VMC day, so it shouldn't be an issue. And landing runway 25. It's going to be a convenient right turn off the runway. We might make Charlie. If we miss Charlie, we'll just have to go to the end. And then we need the 10-9 Alpha. So we're going to stand 212 is what we've been pre-assigned. And by pre-assigned, I mean I went and looked at it last night, and I did up the GSX stuff for that stand last night. So I would like to get to that stand. If it's available. So stand 212 here just towards the end of the terminal. Yeah, we'll have ground control at least to get us in there. 2162 for ground, so I can put that up now, so I think I will. 2162. Give this guy something to do when we get there. That's done. That's a little workload, but later mitigated. Yeah. I may send him a text when we're inbound just to say, hey, just so you know, we want stand 212. Because I know in Europe they often pre-assign the stand, so I would like him to pre-assign me the stand, or assign me the stand that I would like. Okay. yeah, so this is going to be final app approach. I haven't done too many of these, but when we're cleared for the approach, we just arm approach mode. We do not arm the second autopilot. It's flown as a single autopilot, non-precision, but vertical guidance approach. Expecting anti-ice is going to be off in Palermo. Auto brake low. We've got, we'll do reverse full and config full for landing. Autopilot will come off when the runway's in sight. Landing's assured. We have to take the autopilot and the flight directors off by the time we reach the missed approach point. Below the missed approach point, it will not provide us legal guidance. So we are required to take the autopilot off and the flight directors off once we pass CJ 533. At CJ 533, 4 miles final, it has to be hand flown, so we'll use the PAPIs for guidance after that. If the PAPIs are not working, we may leave. We may switch it to switch the bird on and put it in FPA mode to keep us on a constant 3-degree glide slope towards the runway. Yeah. Let's see here. RadNav, nothing to tune on that. The one thing I didn't actually check was just to see if we have RAIM for our arrival. So predictive GPS says no. We can't do the RNP approach. Huh. That's funny. But, yeah. Okay. Well, forget the whole briefing. Should have looked at that first. I guess we're going to have to do the ILS because it looks like the RNAV, the required integrity, may not be available. That's funny. I've seen it every once in a while, and I kind of like that Fenix does this. Like, I've seen every once in a while that it has a couple of N's here and there. Most of the time it's yes, yes, yes. Every once in a while there's a couple of no's in here. Full on no across the board. Okay, so we'll do this. Secondary, activate the secondary. I'm just going to pull up so I can just pull back so I can see the whole screen there. Make sure that our route does not change here. Nope, our route looks like it changed. Our vertical profile looks like it stayed the same. Let's go and check the perf page here. Yeah, 74320 is in there. The 500-foot minimums are in there. So now we're going to change our approach configuration. So it works out to be more or less the same route, just flown with a different nav aid. So now we're going to do the ILS suited runway 25 in Palermo, 11-3, 1095 RAI and 244. Should be on a tune by now. 1095 RAI, 243 within a reasonable degree of accuracy there. 3,000 feet, ILS PA of 500 feet. You can see that's set there on Barrow now, 500. As soon as possible, turn right. Okay, so we reviewed that missed approach already. 7,700 feet is still the highest to the southeast of the PRS VOR. What I could do is I could hard tune that one. And that will get us. And if you really want to be advanced about this, you could even go in here and do this and say fix info, PRS, and then show me radial. So this is 138 miles away, 113.0 the frequency. Yeah, that's the right one. You could do radial. Let's see here. The 090 radial outbound, and then the 270 radial outbound. And this is where we want to basically, there's the line there, within 25 miles, and I can even draw the 25 mile on there just to give us a MSA. But this is 7,700 over here, this is 5,500 over here, so now you've got that whole MSA drawn on there. All right, yeah, it's the approach configuration is now going to be a managed approach or manual landing. It's going to be a low glide slope coupled approach, clear for the approach, arm approach mode, and the second autopilot. And we can disengage at minimums 500 feet, which is 450 above ground. That looks good. I think we've just about done everything. Have I missed anything? I think I've done everything. Let's do a quick little descent checklist here. If we have a descent checklist, we do not. We just have an approach checklist. All we do is just confirm the auto brake status. Page's got nothing on it. Status is clean. And yeah, PA, we missed the PA there 2 minutes ago, so flight attendants, 30 minutes to landing. Wait for their call back to confirm they heard the message. All right. Nice sample run through. Well, that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that, like, in your mind, you've done everything. You've run through the whole approach. You know what you're going to do, because that way when you get down there, you can do it. Things will change. And as human beings, we have to be ready to adapt to that change. But the best way to kind of have an idea of what we're going to do is to run through it all in order, cover all the bases. I wonder if there's any more charts in here, too. So I know in Europe they like to publish a lot of charts. So let's go have a little look-see here and see if they have any airport briefing notes. They do often have airport briefing notes here. It's only 2 pages. It's actually pretty minimal. Use of APU. Engine run-ups. Low visibility procedures. That's going to be applicable today. Case of poor visibility and reduced visibility conditions. No. Runway operations. Runway 2. No. Taxi procedures. Follow me car with every other taxi operation. Request to keep transponder on off or standby. During taxi operations, request to keep transponder off standby. So we'll try to remember to do that. It's unusual. Parking information. ACFT allowed to enter the aircraft. Allowed to enter. The only file has marshal in sight. Airport frequently affected by train-induced wind shear phenomena, mostly originated by winds having intensity of 10 to 20 knots and a 150 to 270 direction. So we're at a 330, 320, so we should be good for that. Intensity of more than 15 knots in southwest directions at 5,000 feet. Birds. Just other information. Just birds. Just general birds. I'm not sure if they're around, if they just like people like the band. I don't know. But runways 20 and 25 right-hand circuit. Speed restrictions. Also struck by ATC aircraft shall reduce speed to max 180 knots at a distance of 9 miles. Or starting to turn to intercept the relevant radial for VOR approach. 160 knots at 5 miles. 180 knots at 9 miles. 160 knots at 5 miles. Noise abatement, reverse thrust. Reverse thrust to power higher than that is allowed only in event of proven safety or operational reasons. This is not applicable for this time of day. Taxi procedures in case of marshalling assistance not available on the aircraft. Communication failures. All right, not a whole lot of crazy information in there. Anything in the notes section here of the airport briefing for departures. There's another one, but it's all just departures. We're not going to do departure today. I'm just doing the one leg, and then I'm going to pull the plug, but it was just a chance to kind of fly this airplane, see what it looks like, see how it handles, and yeah, I think that even the descent is even more interesting with the 321 because it's a heavy bird. If you are not on top of it, you will get behind it very quickly. You will end up being high, you'll end up being fast, you'll end up throwing the speed brakes out from 10,000 or 20,000 feet all the way down, and that sometimes happens in the 321. If the wind prediction is not accurate, that can happen. If the, if you get a shortcut that's unexpected. Now, the way the restrictions are on this, I don't think the shortcut will actually hurt us that much. I think the geometric descent angles, speed error at CJ 426, that's fine. Let's see here, so the altitude, so it's expecting us to cross Abson 8,000, Orvan 7,000. Like, it's not losing much altitude through that like kind of square delaying vector, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. Uh-oh, I lost my track IR. There it is. Okay, good. Got it. All right, I think I've done everything. Almost at a top of descent point here. Where is that airplane? There it is. Things you don't do in the real world, but anywho. And turn that down. I already forget the keystrokes. You told me already, Travis, and I've already forgotten. It does some weird jumpy things though in the cabin. There's some weird cabin artwork going on here. Like it'll. Depending on where you are, which way you're looking, like the speed will come in differently. It's not bad though for a cabin. It's missing people, obviously, but it's definitely not bad. Galley's right. You even get logos on here. I think there's some level of detail stuff that looks weird though. What's odd about this cabin, actually, now that I look at it, what's really odd about this 321 cabin is there's no mid-lav. So most of the 321s that I've ever seen usually have a mid-lav at the, I think it's usually at the aft exit. And there are actually multiple cabin configurations, and there's 2 lavs at the back. But there's I usually find there's a 4th one here at mid cabin at the 3R door here. Anywho, but that's one thing I did notice about the Fenix 321 is that there's a couple of different cabin configurations. This one looks like it's all a single class configuration. There's a couple. The one I flew the other day had a dual class configuration. So if I can get in there, I can really turn this speed down here. But anyways, yeah, there's no business class in this. This is an all economy class. The one I saw had a business class configuration. So there's different configurations. It's kind of it's interesting like that. I'll just take this outside so I can kind of see what's going on out here. Maybe I will completely forget to, but I could bring this up on landing, but I probably completely forget. All right, we missed our top of descent point there, so let's start that down. Flight level 330, and I guess we have to set a lower altitude, don't we? I don't even know what to set it to. I think 8,000 was one of the first restrictions, so we'll set 8,000. 8,000 feet is set. Thrust idle descent, all blue. Roger. It's going to call for more drag because this airplane is going to need more drag. All right, let's close that. Prog page. We're now 2,300 feet above our plan profile. And it will recover a little bit because it will allow it to go above. So I'm just going to let it be for a second here. See how it goes for the first little bit. And we might need to. Okay. It's been pretty fun, though. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to now having a variety of Airbuses to fly the next season. I'm going to definitely fly 321. It's not to say that I won't fly the 320. I will probably mix it up a little bit and do a 320 here and a 321 there, because that's the way it works when you have this fleet in the real world. Sometimes you fly the big one, sometimes you fly the small one. Operation-wise, it's practically the same airplane. The similarities in the flight deck are the differences in the flight deck are almost non-existent. The only real difference from an operation standpoint is the fuel pump system, is the fuel tank, fuel transfer valve system. Other than that, the only other substantial difference that you may notice is just simply the sheer weight and the inertia of this airplane. So that's, the speeds will be a little bit higher. They did actually change the flap speed. So if you look up here, the flap placard, it's 230 in a standard 320. It's, 187, 190, 200, 215, and 230, I believe are the speeds. The trouble with this fleet is that there's differences. So trying to memorize stuff is almost impossible because there's always something different. But all right, so we did get on path. That worked out pretty well. It didn't take us too long to get on path there. And so what I will do is I will have a look here. I do see LICJ ground. So I am going to... There's a few centers I see, but nobody's... Just look at my VATSPI. They're not relevant to me. Not relevant to me, but the WizzAir and the Lufthansa are going to get there at the same time. He is 29,000. I am 26,000. I think I might get there first, but I might have a long route. All right, open private chat to this controller. All right, so I'm just going to send him a private message with my stand request. All right, we did make it under the 23 just as we crossed Giano there, so that worked out just fine. Now we're in speed. Now we're in a geometric descent. Now it's going to start to get busier here as we get to within range of Palermo, and we'll have to work it out with the WizzAir. We'll wait till we see him on radar and see how it's going for him. I'm just curious. I keep closing the Navigraph charts, and I probably shouldn't do that because then the whole airplane pauses while it loads. And that never goes well. See? Then it makes it all jumpy when it does kind of come back to the airplane. It gives all its energy and processor data. Oh my god, you stupid. I'm just curious, for an arrival from the northeast, So he might be on the Rosas, I think. He might be on the Rosas, so then he would fly the same route as us. I'm just curious where other arrivals. No, those ones come from the west. He might be on that one. He might be on the straight in, but I feel like he's also going to be following the same route as us. So whoever's going to get to the fix first, I think, should take the shortcut. I won't program in the shortcut until I see if we're ahead or behind him. If we're behind him, then I'll fly the whole arrival route, just to lose some time. Make sure I'm at least 5 miles behind him on landing. Gabriel Volgarino has not responded to my message yet. And we'll see. All right. Whew. That was a good length flight because that let me talk about most of the stuff I want to talk about. And it's the same airplane. Same, but different. You know, different weight, much heavier weight. We are landing at 75.9 tons. We only just came under the max landing weight a little while ago. You gotta almost think like you're operating a heavy when you're operating this thing. It's not heavy per se, but in a lot of ways the operation resembles that of a heavy. You're gonna spend more than half your cruise above max landing weight, depending on how full it is in the back. But you'll often spend a portion of your cruise above max landing weight. The difference being, of course, we cannot dump fuel. So we either have to choose to land overweight or delay and burn off fuel. I have the TCAS on above. Hopefully I'm going to see him. I might put it on all. Going to take one more look at VATSPY just because I kind of need to coordinate this. He is descending through 22,000 while I'm through 18,000. So it looks like I am ahead, just judging by the altitudes. Palermo traffic, good afternoon. Lufthansa 1914, 30 miles north of field, Giano 5 Lima arrival, ILS runway 25. See if that prompts WizzAir to say something, hopefully. All right. So the next restriction is just iblet above 8,000. I kind of want to leave this on high range so I can see when WizzAir kind of kicks in, but I don't think I'm going to, so. See, now is the time when some communication will be helpful, because if I take a shortcut, I want to know that it's going to work with this guy here. I don't think if I put it on above, it's going to make any difference here. So it didn't. Oh, I see him now. He's 52 above, but it looks like he's getting to the fixes before me. So maybe it looks like he might be doing a direct. So I think we'll fly the whole route here. He's above me. I don't think he's going to make that below 8,000. Restriction. He's 5,000 feet above me, but he's ahead of me on the arrival. Alright, I think we'll play it safe and we'll play ourselves off as number 2. Keep it easy. At least I can see him. So we're going to be above 8,000. We've got to start slowing back to 210 knots here shortly, so there's a big long decel after iblet. Should be a decel now. Alright, he acknowledged my message of stand 212, so that should be good. Alright, so it is decelerating to 250 knots to cross iblet, or to cross below 10,000. I'm going to go ahead and get the in-range checklist out of the way here, so we get landing lights on. We'll go boom, boom. Seatbelts are on. Alright. And we should have LS up. Alright. And let's just check this out here. So approach checklist, Barrow ref. I don't actually have that up again. Let's get the ATIS here. Uniform now, 1550. Dallas approach, arrival on 25, 6500, 340 at 8, 1012. So I'm going to set 1012 on here now. We're not transitioning yet, so I'll leave that. The speed's coming back to 146. That's going to be a little bit low, but I'll let it continue to transition downwards so we can try to hit this 210 knots. I think we're going to need some speed brake to hit that 210 knots. But then here's the other thing about the speed brake is it brings up that VLS, that hook down there. You can't slow down with the speed brake out, ironically. Seat belts. On minimums, we've got 500 feet set for the ILS. Auto brake low and engine mode selector can stay on normal. The approach checklist is complete. So here's the fun thing. It's like I can't slow down, and this is what I talk about with the 321 is I can't slow down because unless I can start retracting the speed brakes, because that hook, as I retract the speed brakes, the hook goes down, but then I stop decelerating. But now I can get flaps 1, speed checked, flaps 1, just barely, but I can get it, and now I can also put the speed brakes out once I get the flap 1, because now the hook has gone way down because of the reconfiguration of the aircraft. So he looks like he went just like straight in. I don't even know what he's doing. From 8600, I don't know what he's going to do. But I'm going to stay back here and fly the whole thing because I'm worried about what he's going to do. Below 8,000, we're just going to come in just below 8,000. Let's continue to descend 5,000. So 5,000 feet is set. There we go. And there's 210 knots. I'm going to pull 210 on the speed. It's just below V. It's just below S speed. We can fly below S speed. It doesn't necessarily hurt to fly below S speed. It's just not efficient. S speed is kind of the minimum speed you should have without putting out this first step of flaps. See, what's he doing? He's at 10,000 feet. He's going overhead the field at 10,000 feet. I don't know what he's doing. He's also not making any calls on Unicom, and that's the frustrating thing. When somebody doesn't make calls on Unicom, then you don't know what they're planning. Alright, so 210. We got to be 200 knots by the time we get to Binpu down there. So we're just going to fly the whole thing here. Temperature's good. We don't need the anti-ice on. Looking good, but this is the thing. Even on landing, we've burned off some fuel, but we haven't burned off that much fuel. Like, look at our green dot speed. Our max flap 2 speed is 215, but our minimum speed with flaps 1 is 210. And you can go a little bit below that. It's not really a total minimum speed. You can go below that, but like you've got these really small margins in the 321. It makes it a lot more of a tricky animal to operate. You've got to be on top of it. Turn that background noise up a little bit again. I feel like it's not super loud now that we're back inside the airplane, but I want some background noise here. So I don't even know what he's doing now. He's not saying anything. I'm going to call turning final. I think it's about 20 mile final it sets us up for here. Alright, so the next speed is 200 knots, so we'll stay on the path, and I'll just set 200. It'll just decelerate gently if it'll let me here. I don't need flaps 2 yet because I'm still well above the hook. This is where alpha protections start to kick in. So I'm well above that. So I'm okay right now. Can't do much more speed brake yet. But before I decelerate much more than this, I'll probably want the flaps again. See, and I don't know what he's doing. I really don't. But now I'm kind of committed to flying the whole route. But one thing I have to remember to do is delete the hold at lav route. Oh, the hold at lav route was only on the RNAV. Okay, good. Why is the ignition on? That's weird. Why is the ignition on? Because we don't have... Is that just normal in the IAEs? Because we don't have the anti-ice on. Interesting. Alright, so we got the 200 knots nailed. 200 knots turning final at OMVIF. Looking good. Looking good. We'll set 4,000 now, and we'll intercept final at 4,000, I think, here. Actually, no, we have to intercept. What does the chart say here? The ILS. Show me the ILS. Glide slope at 3,000 at 9.3 final FF25. So yeah, let's go ahead and set that. We're in managed descent, so it'll meet all the restrictions. It's just gently eking down. See, this is the nice thing, is I could have taken that direct because we're going down so gently right now. I could have taken that direct, cut the corner. But because I didn't know what WizzAir was doing, It's okay. Alright, we're above 4,000. We're at a max of 200 knots. And then Lavru, I believe we had a max of 185. Lavru doesn't actually have it on here. Was it on the star, or was it just, what am I just imagining things? Lavru, it is max 185 knots. 185 knots at Lavru. And then 180 at 9 final, 4 final was 160? I can't remember. So let's go to the taxi. 180 knots, 9. 160 knots at 5. Flight deck Rob speaking.
Hi, Captain. The cabin is now secure for landing.
Thank you. Palermo traffic. Lufthansa 1914 is about to join an 18-mile final runway 25 Palermo. We gotta keep an eye out for this WizzAir guy. Hopefully it doesn't make us do a go around by cutting us off on file or something. Again, communication. Unicom 22.8. Text. I don't think he's texted on Unicom either, has he? I haven't seen a text on Unicom in 45 minutes. So, no. Alright, and there's transition 65, so there's 1012 inches set and cross-checked. Very good. Beautiful, beautiful looking island here. Too bad I'm obsessed with figuring out where this guy is now. Alright. 4,000. So now let's go flaps 2. Speed check, flaps 2, and let's go ahead and select back to speed 185 for Lavru. A little bit cloudy out here, so you're not quite seeing the whole island here, but it is quite a nice island here. Hopefully we get some nice visuals on this approach here once we get below this cloud deck. Alright, so we got the speed back to 185. We're on our way down to 3,000. I'm going to wait till we just passed Lavru at 35, and then I'll arm the approach here. So we got the alt magenta. We are going to level off here at 3,500 briefly, and then we'll continue down. See, now I don't know where he is. He's gone. He flew right overhead the field at like 10,000 feet. I don't know what he's doing now. Alright. Should be an all constraint star here in a second, unless it just managed to just get through it. And 3,500 right as we pass Lavru. There we go. We got alt blue now, FF25, so we can go ahead and arm the approach. So we now have Loc glide slope blue. We got Loc, Cat 3 dual, autopilot 1 and 2. 3,300 descending 3,000. Max 180 knots at 9 miles final, so we're at just coming up on 10 here, so we'll just dial it down now and it'll be fine. Alright, and the glide slope check height, I totally have forgotten it. It was 9.3 DME at 3,000. So yeah, so this is it. So as long as we intercept, there's glide slope. And missed approach altitude of 3,000 feet is set. And there's 9, so we're at 180 knots. That's 3,000, that checks. Palermo traffic, Lufthansa 1914, 9 miles final, runway 25.
Palermo traffic, Lufthansa on Echo, final approach, RF20.
What did he say, ILS-22? Alright, I don't know where he went.
$2,500.
was there a second ago and now he's gone. Alright, let's go ahead and go gear down. Let's go speed 160 for the 5-mile final mark. Alright, so we got that. That's on. Lights. Ooh. Why is he going this way? When the ATIS is advertising runway 25, why is he landing this direction? Alright, flaps 3, speed checked. Flaps 3. Just gonna go outside for a second here, because I just would love to get like 1 or 2 nice screenshots of this approach here. Gonna manage speed on my mini FCU there. This guy's an idiot. I'm sorry. I don't normally like to call people idiots, but like this guy's being an idiot. Ah, what the hell? Alright. And flaps full. Speed checked. Flaps full. Alright, we've got a VAP of 145. Auto thrust is speed and landing memos. No blue, no blue. Landing checks are complete. Like the ATIS was specifically advertising a different approach. Why would you choose the tailwind approach? Anyhow, what do I know? You know. Sorry, it bugs me when people don't want to play games. Like, anyways, Roger.
500. Minimum.
Continue. Autopilot off. Land.
$100. 50, 40, 30, 20. Retard. 5.
Alright, we got spoilers, reverse green, and decel. There's 70. Alright, manual brakes. There. Yeah, we missed the high speed. I kind of figured we would. Take it right on the runway. Palermo traffic. Lufthansa 1914 is clearing runway 25 onto runway 20, taxiing to the apron. Okay, probably didn't slow down that much. Sometimes you get it's hard to get a sense of motion, especially when you look out the window for a second, you move your head. Now we got to get the airplane moving around the corner. Come up on the ground frequency. Palermo ground good afternoon. Lufthansa 1914 clearing on runway 20.
Lufthansa 1914, good day, benvenuto a Palermo, taxi to stand 212 via Delta and Romeo.
Taxi stand 212 via Delta and Romeo for Lufthansa 1914. Thank you.
With 201 Echo, ready check.
So Delta's at the end there.
201 Echo 5x5.
With 201 Echo, you landed on the wrong runway and you decided what stand you were taking, so stand by me. Break. Lufthansa 19R14. Standard 212 is now occupied.
Really?
I apologize for that. You can take standard 210 if it's okay with you.
Well, we appreciate your effort. We'll take the 210. Thanks, Lufthansa 1914.
Thank you. I apologize for the inconvenience.
Nothing you can do. We understand. All right, so we're gonna go Delta.
My apologies, I didn't see that
That was weird. Did that just trip off all my sound? Okay.
With 201 Echo, your radio is unreadable. It's completely a mess.
Okay. Anywho, regardless, it's still a beautiful looking area to fly into here. All right, we could probably go strobes off, lights off, do the after landings here. Flaps up. APU, and we could consider turning off Pack 2, but I'm going to leave it on because it's hot here. It's like 27 degrees, but this is a bespoke airport. This is one of the default airports if you get the World Update Italy, which I think is World Update 9. It's a really nice looking airport, actually. It looks really good from here. And really kind of beautiful terrain. It's a little bit, the texturing on that mountain is a little bit kind of like dragged down the mountain. I feel like if they spent time on this airport, someone should have looked over here and said, maybe we could just do something to make that a little nicer. But anyways, really, like he took 212 of all the spots. Like I specifically set up 212 in GSX last night. Now instead we got to go to 210. Ugh, I didn't even do GSX yet anyway, so it's fine. It's more just like, you know, I'm trying to play within the system because I know how the system works.
Just 201 Echo radio 5x5 now.
Yes, I wanted to apologize because I didn't check that you were online, so I did not see your edits.
He's only been online for like 2 hours, buddy.
3408, so I thought I can do the RMP, so apologies for the arrival and for you as well.
No problem with 201 Echo. Next time, please check the 80s, but it's a simulation, so we're okay.
It is a simulation. We're okay, but it's just like play ball. You know, everyone else is trying to play nice in the pool. All right. So 210 is going to be 207, 208, 209, 210. So it's going to be like the third or fourth one on the building there. So it's a nice looking airport though. Like a lot of effort was put into this for sure. There's default stuff kind of on that side, and it looks really neat looking out the window at that. But they actually did a really nice job. And some of these bespoke airports, especially like the first generation of bespoke airports, where they were okay, but the second generation got really nice. DFW is one of those ones where just like I can't believe like that it also falls the same category as this, because DFW kind of looks like garbage and it's consistently having problems. It's got problems with gaps and jumps in the terrain and pink textures all the time. Every time there's an update, there's pink textures on it. Yeah. Alright, so take a little cut over here on Romeo, around the parking there, up towards the terminal. And we're looking for 210. Alright, so I do see 207. So he's on 212, so 210 is probably this one here. 207, 208, 209 comes in at an angle probably for the heavies. And then this is 210 here, and I think I do see a marshaller there. Oh, does the there is a VGDS. I wonder if it actually works or not, though. Or is it static? I imagine it probably doesn't work. All right, 321. Heavy style. You go past the line, then you come back around because you're just a big, heavy beast. While we're at it, lights out. Give it some juice to get around the turn, because that's, even then, I still could have gone more. Alright, weather radar, I forgot that, but weather radar's now off. Accumulator's good. Anti-ice is off, APU's available, and the lights are off. Well, I tried. Anyways, it's all for fun anyways. Alright, brakes are set. APU's available. Seatbelts off. Engines off. Alright, slide should disarm now. See the agents do one at a time here. Alright, and we can probably take the beacon off. That seems to be what actually triggers the flight attendants to do it, not the seatbelt sign, but it should be the seatbelt sign, but I guess it's the beacon that actually triggers it. And there, all disarmed, perfect. Alright, yellow pumps off. Fuel pumps off. Landing flap 3 is off. Cross bleeds auto. Flight directors, localizers, everything off. Alright, and let's have a look here. Wheels. Not too bad, 200 degrees. That's pretty decent for a warm place like this. Status, nothing unusual on the status. IRSs are naving at 1.3, 1.4. That's not too bad. And fuel, we burned 1262.10. So started with
Echo information uniform is correct. Clear to destination by ACARS
10.7. 10.7. I think that was about what we started with, so that's perfect. Transponder off. I forgot to do that. My bad. And parking checklist. Alright, so after landing, radar winch is off. Parking checklist, parking brake shocks are set, engines are off, wind lights are off, and fuel pumps are off. Parking checklist is complete. Oops. And that's it, guys. Welcome to Palermo. That was it. That was the 321. Oh, look at this. You can actually watch these people getting off through the glass jet bridge. Oh, that's always nice. Oh, I like that. Picture, well, maybe not two people clipping together, but always good when... Let's see if I can snap. Walking up the bridge there.
Palermo ground, good afternoon, monthly 111.
But there she is, the big beast. We did make it here. It's a beautiful evening here in Palermo. The sun's going to go down soon, but that's okay. We made it here.
Mike Lima Papa 111, clear to Malpensa via Jano 5 Quebec departure runway 25.
Just going to try and take some nice screenshots for my library here, because it's just a beautiful scenery, beautiful airplane. Look at airport. Like, this airport looks really good here. Very nicely done. I don't know who did it, but whoever did it, it does. It looks really nice. Yeah, it is just a bespoke airport, but I have to say, like, the quality of the bespoke airports, oops, that's not what I meant to do, that's what I meant to do. The quality of the bespoke airports went up so much from the original bespoke airports. Like, this is fantastic. Like, this is pay-wear level scenery at this point. This guy's already out. Wow, WizzAir does not mess around. Yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic, though, just to see the level of quality here.
Monthly 111, request stop.
Mike Lima Papa 111, start and push is approach facing south.
Take one more screenshot, and anyhow. But yeah, that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching. That was kind of just my nice little brief interlude. I figured we should celebrate the fact that this 321 is out here, that this long beast of an airplane is now ours to fly with, and it doesn't even look that big. Like, it looks kind of nicely proportioned. When you're sitting down here doing a walk around on it, it does start to look pretty big. You're at about this height. You're standing here, you're like, wow, this thing is big. It goes on forever. It's a long machine, but yeah, nevertheless, it's a fun machine. I think I really like it. I think I like it partly because of the challenge, though, because the numbers get so tight, because it's pushing the A320 airframe to its max. The wing, the engines, everything about it is pushed to the maximum. The numbers get very tight.
Via Romeo, Hotel and Tango.
So just, you know, trying to manage the descents and the climbs and everything, it's, especially the descents and the approaches and managing the speeds and retracting the flaps, putting them out again when you only have like these little margins left. I think that's part of the fun and part of the challenge of this airplane. You've really got to plan ahead. You've really got to know your numbers. You've got to be ready. You've got to be watching. You've got to be monitoring. You can't be lazy with this airplane. The Airbus, the 320, lets you be a little bit lazy. You can usually recover from being a little bit too fast, a little bit too slow. But this airplane, you need to be on it. You need to have the speed under control. You need to have the energy managed properly. If you do not, this airplane will bite you. But I think that's the fun and that's the challenge. And we are definitely going to fly some of the Pilot's Life legs coming up in September in this A321 with the jet blue colors. I have picked a schedule. It's a little bit kind of repetitive from some of the stuff we've done before. It's a little different from some of the stuff we've done before. If I can find the Pilot's Life here and I can pop it open, I haven't even looked at it in like a month. I did the schedule like a month ago, but I knew the time did not exist to get this done. So I didn't even try, in all honesty. I didn't even try. Now there's updates too, so now I gotta run the updates. So I can't even remember what we're doing. But anyways, we'll get that started in September. So in the meantime, guys, I think that's it for me today. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer vacation, summer whatever you're doing, whether you're on vacation or not. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're having fun out there. Maybe visiting somewhere nice, warm, and tropical, kind of like Palermo or something like that. But yeah, nevertheless, I'm so excited that this airplane came out. It came out so quickly too. It's like you didn't even have any build-up. It's just like, oh, we're gonna release it tomorrow. Oh, it's out. Boom, done. But that's so nice sometimes because then you're not sitting there waiting and kind of anticipating. It's just like it's a pleasant surprise that's just dropped in your lap. Here you go, fly it, enjoy it, have fun. I like that. I like that a lot. I think I like that more than the PMDG way of having several weeks of lead up and everything else. I don't know if I always like that. So anyways, regardless, I'm gonna head out now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you had fun, and we will see you guys out there. I have let's see here. I have a VATSIM ATC stream that I'm going to hopefully drop in the next couple days. It was absolutely crazy hectic, so that will drop in a couple days. It was from Sunday, so it was only a couple days ago, and I'm just getting it refined and finished, and then I'll move that back, and then this will probably drop in like a week. But anyways, I hope you guys had a chance to watch that one, because that was super hectic, super fun, but that was crazy busy. This, on the other hand, a nice kind of leisurely flight. We're going to get back to business next month, though, so there goes WizzAir. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we will see you guys all out there on the VATSIM network. Take care.